It was just like any other day. I was working doing ice cream, and it was on the same street I lived on, so it was a bike ride away. I was about 3 blocks away from my house, and I saw a gentleman pull out in front of me. He grabbed my handlebars and had a gun. He told me to get off my bike and get on my knees. He told me if I didn't, he would kill me. And he sexually assaulted me. It's the first thing that goes through your head is why? Why me? Why didn't he murder me? She had her whole life ahead of her, and I was the one that survived. I had to relive it every day, 25 years. And he did the same thing, even worse to her.
In August of 1996, Debbie Dorian had recently graduated from California State University of Fresno.
There's Debo taking up the heavy stuff. All right, don't drop it, don't drop it.
She lived in the North Creek apartment complex, which is 4 or 5 miles just north of campus.
We had just finished our briefing that we usually have in the morning. I was told that there was a female that was found in her apartment.
Peter Dorian, Debbie's father, and Debbie had made plans that Debbie was to drive to Peter, her father's house, Thursday, August the 22nd. She had planned to arrive around 7 a.m.
She didn't show up, so after a brief amount of time, he went to her apartment.
Knocked on the door, rang the doorbell, and received no answer. He then turned the doorknob and pushed the door open, and it opened, which it shouldn't have because his daughter, Debbie, was very security conscious, would never leave her door unlocked.
He went into the apartment, didn't see her in the living room or dining area or the kitchen, and then went towards the back part of the apartment.
The TV was on, so he began to call for her and received no answer. He then began to look throughout the apartment, and he found the most horrific sight that any parent could encounter. And that was his daughter, Debbie Dorian, lying in the middle of her bedroom floor on the carpet, on her side.
She was naked from the waist down. Her shirt was pulled up.
Her ankles were duct taped. Her hands were duct taped behind her back. And she had duct tape completely covering from the top of her head down to her jaw.
We couldn't see her face. Obviously, she wouldn't have been able to breathe at all.
Peter Dorian did what any parent would do. He thought if he tried to take off the duct tape, she would be able to breathe, which was impossible.
He immediately went to her phone in her apartment. He found that the phone was unplugged. Tried to plug it in, didn't seem to be working. He was very frantic.
Peter Dorian is in such a state of shock, he actually calls his wife, Debbie's stepmother, first. She's the one who calls 911.
Go ahead, ma'am. My husband just called and went to his daughter's apartment. She didn't show, and he found her dead in her apartment. Okay, tell me what your daughter's name is. Her name is Deborah Dorian.
And then Peter makes another devastating phone call to his ex, Debbie's mom, Sarah Loven.
Well, he was just, straight on with, Deborah's been killed. I ran screaming through the house. No, 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 no. And that's all I could say was no, no, no. It just feels like somebody took a great big spoon and carved out your heart.
Debbie was working towards her degree in economics, but she was also thinking about going to graduate school.
When I spoke to Peter, he said that they were going to go to some other colleges to look at ideology programs because Debbie was looking at following in her dad's footsteps as being an ideologist.
That particular apartment complex was inhabited with numerous college students. It's an area where that type of crime does not occur.
Vince Savala spent 18 years with Fresno police and had just joined the California Bureau of Investigation before getting the call about Debbie Dorian's murder.
This is where Debbie lived. It must have been crawling with investigators.
Crawling with investigators, crawling with people who were worried.
You had crowds gathering.
There were crowds, yes.
According to police, Debbie's dad found her body in her bedroom early this morning.
There was no forced entry that we could see. I didn't see major disturbance in the living room or kitchen area.
August 1996, my title was a scene criminalist, and I remember going to the scene. It looked like she had just made a sandwich, so the sandwich was there with some Doritos. I also remember going into the kitchen. There was a bag of Fruit Loop cereal that had been open, it was ripped open.
A couple of things are possibilities. One, she knew this individual and let him in. Two, he displayed some kind of a weapon immediately, and she complied with his commands to allow him into her residence.
Obviously, one of the things that does come to mind is whether or not it's a serial type of thing, mostly because of the sophistication of how she was taped.
The coroner determined Debbie's cause of death was due to suffocation because the duct tape had covered her entire head.
In situations like this, the pathologist that did the examination, he knew right off the bat that he was going to do a sexual assault kit just because of the way she was found.
There was semen found on the victim, and then there was saliva sample that was found, and they came from the same source. They were the same individual.
This profile was as soon as possible uploaded into the National DNA Database. There was no hit.
In 1996, I was a lieutenant in the Fresno Police Department, assigned as the public information officer. It was frustrating that we had DNA evidence, but we had no one to tie it to.
I knew it was a tough one, and so I immediately volunteered anything I could do to help them with that case before I took it over.
What made you think, oh, this is tough?
Because they were hitting brick walls left and right. It was a whodunit, and those are the most difficult homicides to solve.
But an eyewitness is about to offer a major clue.
He had seen an individual approach Debbie's store.
A short conversation to the effect, "Oh, hi, how are you?"
There is some very evil, demented predator out there.
You're thinking, we have a murderer on the loose.
We didn't know if, when, and where he was going to strike again.
Strike it rich. Advertise in the Fresno Bee Classified.
8.7 KRZR, Hanford, Fresno. I'm Dave Rogers.
It's the tragic story of a young woman's life that ended too early.
Debbie's murder was immediately covered by every television station, every radio station in this area. Front page news.
The Debbie Dorian case definitely stayed with me. The horrific way that she was killed, and then the terrible impact on her family, and especially her father.
Debbie's dad found her body in her bedroom early this morning.
Just the thought of him finding her like that, it's just really unimaginable.
And bad news, as they say, spreads like wildfire. Just as the whole town is hit by the news of Debbie Dorian's murder, her childhood friends, Katina and Heather, are learning about it too.
I heard it on the news. It showed her apartment, and they gave her name.
Family members and neighbors say Debbie Dorian, a Fresno State student, worked hard and had plans to specialize in audiology.
And I couldn't believe it, so I immediately called Katina.
And she goes, something's happened to Debbie. And I said, Debbie who? Because it wasn't registering with me. And she goes, Debbie, you're Debbie. And she said, Debbie's been murdered. And I slammed the phone down and I lost control.
The fear triggered by Debbie Dorian's murder was felt throughout the entire city of Fresno. But the hardest hit, right here, in and around the campus of Fresno State, where her fellow students were left not just grieving her loss, but grappling with their own fears for their safety.
There was a bubble around Fresno State, you know, and a hush, and people were whispering, and there was a lot of fear.
That's about that time blue light started going up. I mean, just the awareness started going up about not walking to your car by yourself. You know, just all the things that we tell people today just started being said right about that time.
It struck fear into Fresno.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Our parents were worried and everything, yeah. Fresno's a sleepy little farm town.
Fresno's located in the heart of California. We like to say that we're a big city, but we have a small town feel.
Not only is the temperature nice and warm in the summers, but people are wonderful here. And we have a sort of a farming, you know, mentality. And if you're not in ag, you know somebody that's in ag.
We produce more agriculture in Fresno County than anyone else in the world. But we also pride ourselves on just that community feel.
We really have such a sense of family that we feel that, you know, Debbie was not only the Dorian's child, but she was Fresno's child too. It's frightening to think that that this could happen to Debbie, because if it could happen to Debbie Dorian, it could have happened to any of us.
You're on camera, guys! She's the daughter that so many people have, that you were afraid to let go to college because you didn't want anything bad to happen to her.
She had a really bubbly personality. Always ready for a joke and a laugh.
Brawl time, Deb. Brawler.
Yeah, she was a big people person. We hung out at each other's houses a lot of girl talk. Go to the movies.
We would cruise.
We'd drive, waste gas.
What was on the radio?
I think it was CNC Music Factory, maybe. Pearl Jam, Motley Crue, Guns N' Roses.
Guns N' Roses.
103.7 KRZR. Dave Rogers here. Time for your concert update, brought to you by Budweiser.
She went to Fresno State and she studied economics. She was president of the Econ Club.
She sounds like the Golden Girl.
Yeah. There literally is not a day that goes by that I don't think about her.
We tried to determine basically what her lifestyle was like, whether or not she hung around with people who might cause or have some kind of dealings that would cause this to happen.
We formed a timeline of Debbie's actions prior to her murder. Debbie was killed between roughly 12 and 4 o'clock in the afternoon on August the 20th, 1996.
One of Debbie's neighbors did report that he had seen an individual approach Debbie's store, and he noticed the individual because he didn't recognize him. He wasn't somebody that was normally in the area.
There appeared to be a short conversation, something to the effect, "Oh, hi, how are you?" And that's all he saw.
But nobody knew who it was. They only had a description of it being a white male, a certain age and height.
With no obvious signs of forced entry, detectives quickly turned their attention to any white males that Debbie knows, including her boyfriend, John Thomas.
I knew he would be a suspect. I mean, it's obvious. The first people they look at are people that they care about and that they're close to.
There's always that side of you that says, well, if he wasn't involved, he's going through some traumatic experiences right now. But as your job is, you have to interview him.
My name is John Thomas. As of August 1996, we've been dating approximately 2.5 years. Debbie was very outgoing, very extroverted, fun to be around. I was doing contract work for the U.S. Forest Service northeast of Fresno. I left town approximately a week before she was murdered.
Since a sexual assault was involved in this murder, we had to ask John Thomas some tough sexually related questions.
You actually get angry because, and I know why they're asking the questions, but it's almost like a character assassination. It's hard to hear things said about this person that you love that's been murdered.
We were able to determine that John Thomas, at the time of Debbie's murder, was assigned to fighting a fire in Northern California. I asked for a DNA sample from John Thomas, and he voluntarily provided one. He was eliminated as being a donor of the DNA.
The last time I saw her was 10 days before she was killed. It was John's graduation. She'd had her hair done and a new outfit, and she was beautiful.
That would be the last videotape of her, and they'd be some of the last pictures taken of her. It's hard to look at him today still, so.
John Thomas is fully cooperating and able to offer investigators critical information about Debbie in the weeks leading up to her murder. Turns out, Debbie had been looking for a roommate.
That sent up a really big red flag.
She'd put ads and flyers up, which was pretty typical. I think a couple of people had fallen through, so I know that, that could be stressful.
I think she was getting desperate. She needed to get some finances so that she could pay her bills. She needed somebody soon.
Could it be that someone who had come to visit her apartment did this? That became something that concerned us.
She had some papers on her dining room table with names on it.
A list of prospective roommates becomes a list of people of interest.
She opened the door for somebody.
So who was on the other side of that door?
A police spokesman says the department has 2 detectives working full-time on the Debbie Dorian murder case.
They had a tremendous amount of pressure because the police had very little to go on. It's not usually a one-time thing. Somebody doesn't commit a one-time horrendous crime. They commit it again.
And one lead jumps right to the top of the pile, her search for a roommate.
She had put ads in the paper, she had posted flyers at Fresno State, and she had a list of people's names on her table.
Anytime you have a list of people that you believe have had recent contact with the victim, those people are going to be persons of interest.
A few of the names I remember specifically, one was Alvin, one was Laura, and one was Nick or Rick.
There was a person named Alvin who had actually made contact with her in person.
Alvin called the police department after he heard the news and said, hey, I was supposed to rent a room from the girl that was murdered. I was at the apartment. He had provided a deposit and signed an agreement with Debbie to take the room, but he hadn't received a key yet.
Alvin doesn't fit the neighbor's description of the white man he saw outside Debbie's apartment. Alvin is black, in his early 20s, and over 6 feet tall.
Detective Garcia's the interview with Alvin. What did you do when you went there? I knocked on the door, she invited me in. What time was it that you got there? 6, 7.
We thought it was a little unusual that she would have a male roommate.
It was strange because she didn't rent to men, but I know how desperate she was to get a roommate.
What do you think about living with someone who's got a boyfriend? Actually, I thought it was kind of really weird. But I didn't get, I felt like, there was a problem. That's her problem, not mine.
A background was conducted and it was determined that he was a sex registrant in the state of California.
That definitely sent some alarm bells going off in investigators' heads because of the circumstances around Debbie's death.
That must have made you think, oh boy.
Absolutely.
And then he tells you something odd about going back to the apartment.
He went back because he was concerned, since Debbie didn't answer the door, that maybe she was taking his money.
He told me something about the door knob. Remember what that was? On Wednesday night, I knocked on the door. Nobody answered. The blinds were open. The TV was on. So what I could see on the wall. And then when I knocked on the door, nobody answered. I tried the door. Unlike most of the time, the door was unlocked.
Of course, this raises big questions. He admits turning the door handle and finding it unlocked, but he says he doesn't enter. That statement must have struck you as odd.
Absolutely.
So you're questioning Alvin about his alibi, and he gives you another name.
Yes.
And that is?
Maurice.
Alvin and Maurice Dixon worked at the same place, a business called Grocery Outlet. They were friends at that time.
Dixon at that time was 28 years old. He was an Army veteran. He didn't have any criminal record.
He transported Alvin to Debbie Dorian's apartment on several occasions. And on some of those occasions, he accompanied Alvin to the front door of Debbie Dorian's apartment. However, he never entered. never met Debbie Dorian, never been inside her apartment, and as I recall, never really had a conversation with her.
So you've never seen this girl, don't know what she looks like, never talked to her?
No, not from when all this started happening at first. You know, I never seen her or just heard her voice on the phone. And then recently, like when we were talking, I've seen a picture on the news.
During the interview, he stuck to the story that he'd never met Debbie. We started getting into some of his sexual background.
I'd like to, go over to her house and check your things. Is that okay?
Yeah, it's fine. I think I have a receipt for it in my checkbook. I bought 2 things of duct tape to tie up the ends of the rope.
He said that the only duct tape he ever had was for a punching bag that he had at his home. That was a little suspicious to us, that he would volunteer that kind of information. He wasn't told we were looking specifically at duct tape, that we were only looking at bondage type of things.
Dixon says he had been asked specifically about duct tape in an interview with another detective, which is why he brought it up.
What made you mention that?
Somebody mentioned duct tape or something like that. Do you have any duct tape or do you know anything about duct tape or something?
When was that?
That was when I first came to question.
But investigators' eyebrows are officially raised.
We were able to get consent to search his home, found the punching bag that he had used that had duct tape around it.
It didn't match up with the duct tape that was used on Debbie's body, or that was located on Debbie's body. The DNA from Debbie's body was compared to Alvin, and he was excluded as being the contributor to that DNA.
Alvin is eliminated. Maurice Dixon's sample was also submitted to see if we could exclude, and he could not be excluded.
It didn't add up because he said he'd never been in her apartment. So the fact that he said that and that the DNA at least had a preliminary match, I think everyone thought he wasn't telling the truth.
Our investigation is that you were the one that did this.
No, I am not the one who did this. I have nothing to do with this at all. How many times I have to keep telling you, I did not go inside this apartment. I do not know this person. I never met her.
As a result of that test, Maurice Dixon was arrested and charged with the murder of Debbie Dorian.
When Dixon arrived home from work, undercover officers swooped in and he was arrested with his hands up right in the middle of the street.
He pleaded not guilty. His bail was set at over $1 million. I think the feeling was that the case had been solved. Most people thought it was over.
I think it's great. I mean, hopefully it's the right person.
But this case is far from over. As investigators keep digging, they're about to get a big surprise.
It was a surprise to the police, to the media, to everyone you could think of.
Maurice, you have to understand something, okay? You're under arrest for murder.
An arrest was made in the death of Deborah Dorian.
Police, out of nowhere, they made this arrest of a man named Maurice Dixon, who had gone to the apartment with his friend, who was responding to Debbie and her advertising for a roommate.
Residents were shocked that he is charged with Dorian's murder.
Yeah, very surprised. Yeah, this is quite neighborhood. You don't expect something like that. And like I said, especially coming from him.
Now, Dixon's arrest comes just 1 year after the O.J. Simpson verdict, the so-called trial of the century.
It was a vote of not guilty for O.J. Simpson and a vote of no confidence in the LAPD.
LAPD guilty!
At the time, the general public, especially in California, was more aware of DNA, but there was also more scrutiny of police investigations.
Well, actually, I don't want to go into race, but just knowing the background of a black man in society being arrested and the scared feeling that our family had with Maurice actually being in the system, I mean, really brought a lot of anguish to our family.
There was a lot of racialized tensions in the air at that time. O.J. Simpson's verdict had just come in. That came on the heels of Rodney King.
Are we live? But to the people of South Central LA, that 30-hour rampage was more revolt than riot.
There was a lot of pointing fingers, but the police had reason to be looking at Maurice.
Oh, I definitely think there was a reason to look at him. He had been there in a very close proximity to the time that she was last heard from. And so, you know, he was definitely somebody that was on the list.
Maurice Dixon walked into court shackled at the hands and feet.
After Maurice Dixon was arraigned, police continued to investigate. So one of the things they did was conduct a more sophisticated DNA test.
You have to remember, at that time, DNA technology was changing rapidly. Investigators initially relied on one test that compared 6 markers, but were about to start using a more precise test, looking at 13 markers, similar to what labs use today.
It was a matter of weeks between the first test and the second DNA test, the more discriminating one.
That second, more powerful test reveals the DNA from the Debbie Dorian crime scene does not match Maurice Dixon. He is cleared and all charges are dropped.
Maurice Dixon had been in custody for a little more than 2 weeks. Tonight, he is free, and the investigation into the Debbie Dorian murder case returns to square one.
The fact that that DNA did not match, I think it was a surprise to the police, to Debbie's family, to the community, to everyone you could think of, except for Maurice Dixon, because he knew he didn't do it.
Right now, we don't want to comment at anything at this time. We're just happy that he's being released.
So after Maurice Dixon was released from jail, I interviewed him. He told us that, you know, he was living with this shadow over his life, that there was this air of suspicion around him. He was potentially facing the death penalty for a crime he didn't commit.
People, you know, stare at me and accusing me, but not knowing, you know, the full details of what happened.
I totally understand his feelings. I understand the family's feelings, but it was all part of my investigation.
We know that there's someone out there that have committed this crime, and basically the city is afraid again. We know it's hard on her family also, because they have to go through it again, waiting to see who they may arrest next.
I just thought, okay, we're back to square one. We need to rethink this. I worked with children, and I didn't want to be emotionally upset when I'm working with children. So for my lunch breaks, I go and cry for 20 minutes, and then I'd come back and we're okay for a while. You know, I just had to keep going, yeah.
Our future's been taken away. We will not see a wedding. We will not see grandchildren. She will not get to have a life. The one thing we can do, and the one thing we strive to do, is to get the person who did this.
Every time something like this happens, it's like pulling the scab off a wound.
Peter Dorian, her father, was very committed to keeping the case in the mind of the community, in the mind of media.
I would hope that a person would have the morality to come forward if they know something just because they want to help or they feel maybe a little guilt about something.
We put flyers everywhere. We put them all around Fresno State. We put them in all the businesses. The governor's reward was $50,000. Then our family reward was $10,000. So it's quite a big reward.
I can't live with myself unless we've done everything we can do to help solve the crime.
He was very active at first. I think it became so overwhelming that it just hurt too much to keep going. And so he decided he would retreat.
I remember receiving a telephone call from Peter, and he told me, he says, Vince, he says, I can't do it anymore. She'll forever be in my heart, but I cannot hold out hope any longer.
But Debbie's mom, Sarah, pushes forward, holding investigator Vince Zavala to a promise.
I made a commitment to her. I would never quit. And she asked me, well, what about when you retire? I says, well, I won't retire. I won't retire until I solve it. I've been a law enforcement officer for a little over 40 years, and I farmed all those 40 years in addition to working. With a cold case, you pour your heart and your soul into it and all the time you have, and hopefully you solve the case. It entails a lot of patience, just like farming. No matter what you're doing, you have to continue to farm, or all the time will be for nothing. So if I had to come out at night and work on the case during the day, I'd come out at night.
Vince Zavala is the man you want on your side. And when he gets a hold of something, he doesn't let it go.
Sarah often said that solving Debbie's murder was like a million-piece puzzle. If you keep putting one piece together, two pieces together, three pieces, you're eventually going to get a picture of who murdered her daughter.
And some of those pieces are about to fall into place.
Fresno police are looking for a Caucasian male in his late 20s, early 30s.
Thanks to a string of terrifying attacks just an hour from Fresno.
We feel he's a predator. He could strike at any time.
This was a person who was repeating.
And then the break investigators have been waiting for.
This guy is still around. We've got a shot at getting this guy down.
So this case became personal to Vince Zavala. He was determined to find Debbie's killer.
Some of the investigators on this case continue doggedly to work on it.
That's Fresno. You know that the Fresno PD never gave up. You know how frustrating it must be for them to just wake up every day and not know who did it, why did they do it, how did they do it.
Were there moments where you lost hope of solving the crime?
I never lost hope. I always had faith, but there were many, many times I was frustrated.
It stayed with the department, stayed with me, even to this day. There was this desire to solve the case, but we needed evidence.
Our investigation of the murder of Debbie Dorian focused basically on the Fresno area. Then I received a telephone call from our Fresno Regional Laboratory and was told that there was a DNA case-to-case hit.
Remember, the DNA from Debbie's case is already in that national DNA database, CODIS. And now, finally, after 6 years, another case is a match.
There was a lead where the DNA in Debbie's case matched suspect DNA in a sexual assault in Visalia. Visalia is about an hour away from Fresno to the south.
So in July 1999, there was a sexual assault occurred on the south side of Visalia. Over the period of the next 3 years, several other similar crimes occurred in Visalia. I believe these crimes were committed by the same suspect.
In each of those cases, the suspect was described as a white male adult, in his 30s generally, from 5'6" to maybe close to about 6 foot, medium-sized build.
So his MO would be that he'd find a young woman, late teens, early 20s. He'd find her alone. He produced the gun and he told them that he'd shoot them if they didn't do what he said.
He was described as either wearing a bandana over his face or he was wearing a hoodie with the hood pulled up over his face. The victims described him as wearing black pants and black shoes, which eventually led us to think that maybe he was involved in the restaurant business.
Police aren't able to collect physical evidence from every assault, but in one case, they get lucky, collecting DNA from the suspect that will become the critical puzzle piece linking these assaults to Debbie Dorian's murder.
Jane Doe, number 1, was riding her bike home from work. A man approached her with a gun.
Tells her to get on her knees, fondles her under her clothing.
She was able to show investigators where the sexual assault took place, so they were able to collect DNA from that area.
And now they know that whoever left that DNA is also the person who murdered Debbie Dorian. They just don't know who it is.
It brought it to a whole new level because now we got a guy that is running around in the Visalia area that has killed before. It gets everybody's attention.
Once I heard of the case-to-case hit, I was so excited I jumped in my car and immediately went to Visalia. This guy is still around. We've got a shot at getting this guy now.
Working together, the team in Fresno and Visalia conduct background checks, interviews. They collect and test well over 100 DNA samples, but they just can't seem to hit their mark. They were chasing what seemed like a ghost, and the clock was ticking.
Once we had exhausted our leads in Visalia, we were desperate.
You never know when he's going to get the urge to hit again. You never know if he's going to escalate or if he's going to go back to something else. He could strike at any time.
There were times I couldn't sleep at night because what can we do? So as the years go by, I said, you know what, we have to preserve the cases that we have.
You know, statute of limitations on sex crimes was 10 years in California, and we were approaching the 10-year mark.
So the clock is running out. The prosecutors decide, well, we have the DNA.
We have a commonality. We can identify this DNA profile.
We just don't have a name.
We just don't have a name.
Lieutenant Pewter wrote a John Doe warrant for the DNA profile, and that was very instrumental because what it did was preserve the statute of limitations.
The warrant officially stops the clock on the statute of limitations. It's the first of its kind in the county, say authorities, buying the team more time to find their John Doe.
We knew that if we could find this person, that we really had him, which, you know, is a big part of the puzzle.
A puzzle that's about to get some help from an unlikely source, a serial killer.
I'm sure the detectives back then couldn't imagine this. It's crazy.
I really felt this was going to crack the case.
A killer with decades-old secrets is in their sights.
Peter, sorry, but we got to check all the boxes off.
And the victim, the survivor, who promised to take her attacker down.
All I remember saying is, I'm going to get you. You're not going to get away with it.
What went through your head when you realized the man who assaulted you is also charged with murdering somebody?
Why didn't he murder me?
Debbie's dad found her body in her bedroom early this morning.
If it could happen to Debbie Dorian, it could have happened to any of us.
This case is often referred to as a million-piece puzzle. This is just a sample, right?
This is a fraction of what was collected. Trace evidence, fibers, fingerprints.
We have to find this monster out there.
Have you ever seen that girl? No. You don't know her?
On the surface, he did seem like, you know, your next door neighbor.
His alter ego, Nick Steele, online.
More of a fantasy.
He talked about his bedroom looking similar to 50 Shades of Grey.
It was crazy. It was crazy.
Her name was Debbie Dorian. You didn't kill her, did you?
Here's this boogeyman of your nightmares, and yet everyone described him as the guy who could be your neighbor.
Who was your neighbor?
Yeah, I hope you find him. I hope we do catch the guy.
Here in this quiet city of Visalia, nestled in the Sierra Nevadas, the same man who brutally murdered 22-year-old Debbie Dorian begins a brazen string of sexual assaults against other women. One of them is attacked riding her bike home from work. One tries to escape the predator by cutting through a field. And another, just a high school student at the time, attacked as she was walking home from school. Another is assaulted here while waiting for a bus. All of these women's identities have been shielded from the public by law enforcement, each of them referred to simply as Jane Doe. But tonight, for the first time, one of these brave survivors is stepping out of the shadows. We're rolling. You were Jane Doe #1 for many years.
Yeah.
But you're comfortable now with saying at least your first name.
At least my first name, yeah.
And you're comfortable going on camera.
I wasn't for a long time.
And when we sat down for her first interview, she told us she was ready to reclaim her voice, taking back what she says was stolen from her at just 19 years old when she moved to the Central Valley of California. It was your love of horses that drew you here.
Yes.
You kind of had your future mapped out in your head.
I wanted to be a horse trainer.
And you were an independent young woman.
Yes. Or I thought.
And then you're riding your bike home from work one day.
I was about 3 blocks away from my house, and I saw a gentleman pull out of a street. It was 10:30 at night. There was nobody on the road. He grabbed my handlebars and had a gun.
And you saw the gun?
Yeah. Told me to get off my bike and get on my knees. He told me if I didn't, he would kill me. And I believed him. I was 19. You have a gun to your head and you do what you're told. And the whole time, all I remember saying is, I'm gonna get you. You're not gonna get away with it.
That's feisty.
Yeah.
With a gun pointed at you.
I didn't know what else to do.
Beth says the man concealed his face. She could only see his eyes in the dark. She was sexually assaulted. And then she says the man fled.
He told me to stay where I am, count to 10, and turn around and go home. If I turned around or tried to come and find him, he knew where I lived and he would kill me.
He told you he knew where you lived. That is so frightening.
By the time I got to my apartment, I threw my bike on the grass, called my sister. About a minute later, 4 detectives and police and everybody was in my apartment.
Jane Doe had the presence of mind to quickly report. Reporting patrol officers were able to quickly locate the crime scene and collect the DNA evidence.
And then over the course of the next 3 years, we had another 3 different crimes, all of similar MO. And really, it wasn't until maybe the 3rd or the 4th crime that we realized we had the same suspect and we had a pattern.
The DNA collected in Beth's case is compared to other crimes in the National Criminal Database, called CODIS. And that's when things take an unexpected turn. That case-to-case hit.
Whoever left the DNA at Debbie Dorian's crime scene committed that sexual assault. Knowing he was in the Visalia area was the first big boost we had since the murder of Debbie Dorian.
Mine slides just like yours. What went through your head when you realized the man who assaulted you is also charged with murdering somebody?
Why didn't he murder me? That's the first thing that came to my head. Because I asked when the murder was. It was 96, and mine was 99.
Why do you think you survived?
God only knows. I don't know.
And as the years clicked by?
I would get a phone call every 5 years or so saying my case is still open, and they're like, oh, okay, well, thanks for the call, and that was it.
The thought that we would never catch this guy was not something I wanted to live with, you know. For the victims in Visalia, and then for Dorian family, it's something that I wanted to do everything in my power to find this guy. Sorry, I'm getting emotional.
The string of attacks on women seems to suddenly end. But even though the perpetrator appears to have stopped, Vince Zavala won't.
In the Debbie Dorian case, we had over 286 pieces of evidence submitted for analyzation. Delia moved up the ranks and eventually became the director for the entire Fresno Regional Laboratory. Whenever I needed help pushing evidence through, I would call Delia.
He was very persistent. He would bring additional references, maybe registered sex offender cases that sort of look similar.
We collected DNA from over 146 individuals and compared to evidence left at Debbie Dorian's crime scene.
146 DNA tests. And that's on top of the mountain of evidence Vince has collected throughout the years and shared with new detectives who would join the case.
This is just a sample, right?
This is a fraction of what was collected at the evidence warehouse. It's just shelf upon shelf of evidence.
In 2018, after nearly 2 decades of investigating, this now very cold case is about to heat up, thanks to the arrest of another serial predator.
We have identified Joseph James D'Angelo as the sole suspect in the Visalia Ransacker crime series. The Visalia Ransacker case was really kind of criminal lore throughout Visalia, throughout my entire career. Ultimately, that entire case would become the Golden State Killer.
We begin with that bombshell arrest. They say cutting-edge DNA testing allowed them to make a match.
I heard like everyone else, and then a thought came to my mind. Why couldn't we use the same DNA technology used to capture the Golden State Killer on Debbie Dorian's homicide case? Visalia Police Department worked on that task force, and I knew a lot of those detectives, and that started the ball rolling.
A very dear friend of mine who's the retired Sacramento County DA, Anne Marie Schubert, who was just an essential part of solving the Golden State Killer case.
We found the needle in the haystack, and it was right here in Sacramento.
She called me and said, hey, we need to come down to Fresno because this technology is amazing. I'll bring my staff. And so then we started to work together with them.
Sacramento County, their DA's office, gave us a blueprint how to move forward with this new investigative technique.
They are able to come up with family members who are likely to be related to this suspect.
You can build out essentially a family tree and then start investigating backwards to see who are the relatives that could potentially be a suspect.
Within maybe a week, we got a lead.
And bells start to go off.
Exactly. A witness had seen a suspicious male outside of Debbie's apartment on the day in question. And as I read that description and I'm looking at the photograph of the suspect, I'm like, this is our guy. This really is.
The picture matched up to the descriptions. I'm like Mark, it was like, this is him.
Now 567 to the arrest team, stand by.
This is a pomegranate orchard. This is what I farm. I've been farming probably a good majority of my life. Farming is much like investigating cold cases because there's a lot of unknown, there's a lot of hard work, and you don't know what you're going to end up with. You got to be very patient, watch it grow, and hopefully you get fruit.
After nearly 40 years of being a detective and a farmer, the time finally comes for Vince Zavala to retire from his day job. But there is one unsolved case he can't let go of. It was tearing at your heart.
Absolutely, but I'd made a promise to Sarah. When I retired, I talked to Chief Dyer because we were friends.
I realized as a police chief, there's more than I can do, and it's bring Vince back.
He allowed me to come back as a reserve police officer, which gave me police officer powers when I was on duty, and that was important.
But no police officer pay.
I told him I didn't want to be paid.
With that genetic genealogy DNA match in hand, Vince was more hopeful than ever that his years of investigative work were about to bear fruit.
Probably the best lead we've had in over 23 years. This could very well be our guy.
They are able to take this genealogical DNA and ultimately they came up with a name, Nikki Dwayne Stain.
He married, had a couple of kids. His work history was very solid. No criminal past that we could see. This is a normal guy, but then you think, well, a normal guy could have committed this. That's why we haven't been able to find him. He was living in Visalia, in the city.
He raised his kids, was at the PTA. His focus was the family, and he did work for charity organizations.
Now that detectives have a name, they want to talk to this guy. They discover that he's been divorced and working at a food court in the local mall.
Turns out that early hunch that their suspect may work in the restaurant business was spot on.
We were all hands on deck. Let's do what we got to do. Let's get a DNA sample from him. Our primary mission was to look for anything that he would publicly discard that we could obtain a DNA profile from.
So we thought a trash run might be the best opportunity. My partner and I dressed down in plain clothes, put on a vest as if we were part of solid waste. We removed the trash cans from the street and replaced them with the empty trash cans.
It's called a surreptitious trash dump because once he throws it away outside on the street, it's free game.
We found male razor blades that appeared used and were discarded, and so we sent that up to be tested to see if it had any DNA on it.
I was excited, but I'd been excited before, so that kept me from totally jumping in.
But 2 weeks later, his phone rings.
I was at home. It was the middle of the day. I put it on speakerphone.
I said, hey, Vince, you got to sit down because I have news. We got the guy. It's him.
My wife was close to me. Once she heard it, she cried. So did I. As I've gotten older, I've gotten more emotional. I'm pretty old now. I was happy.
It was good. It was a lot of years of work.
Nikki Stain was our 147th individual who we obtained a DNA sample from for comparison, and he was the match.
Okay, you're good. We're out of the car.
Their next stop is that shopping mall in Visalia to surprise Nikki Stain with a visit.
There's a couple of customers, Chris.
If you don't feel comfortable with the other stuff,
We'll just wait, hang back.
Yeah, they're off.
I don't see how we're going to be able to talk to him over the counter. We went to his workplace asking for him. Hi, is Mr. Stain in?
Mr. Stain in?
Yeah. Hi, Mr. Stain. My name is Vince Zavala. It's Bob Sodas. We're doing some grunt work here. We're looking into a matter that happened a while ago. Take 5 minutes. Okay. That's fine. We began to ask him some questions. Have you ever seen that girl? No, you've never committed any violence against her.
No, I haven't done anything. I don't know her, so I wouldn't know how to.
Yeah. So have you never committed violence against anybody?
No violence against anybody.
But Vince hasn't waited this long and come this far to take no for an answer.
Her name was Debbie Dorian. She was found murdered. You didn't kill her, did you? No.
Nikki Stain denied knowing Debbie.
During our conversation with Nikki Stain, I told him, I says, look, we've been asking everybody we talked to if they would voluntarily give us an oral swab to compare to evidence that's at this scene. But if you haven't been there, I mean, you know, it's just kind of a mundane thing.
Yeah, it sounds like, I don't know, that sounds like, I don't know if I want to do that.
Stain refuses to turn over his DNA, and the interview seems to come to an end.
We thanked him for his time. As we were walking, Nikki Stain stops. He looks me in the eye, and he says,
Yeah, I hope you find him.
I hope we do catch the guy, and thank you. Have a good day.
We had an arrest team standing by the exterior door
257 to the arrest team, stand by.
where he was going to have to re-enter the mall back to his place of work.
Nikki Stain.
Hi.
Put your hands behind your back.
Turn around, man. 5 seconds later, he's arrested.
He was ultimately arrested at that time on the sexual assaults from the Visalia cases.
Shortly after Nikki Stain was handcuffed, I made a telephone call to Sarah.
He called me and he says, we actually have him. We have him in custody. And I said, really? Really? This is really something. Yeah, called all my friends, called everybody. Guess what? Guess what? Guess what? Yeah, it's really happening.
Go and have a seat in it.
As police begin talking to Nikki Stain, they're about to discover that he is anything but the guy next door.
If you have my phone, you'll be able to see that because it has like 400 videos on it.
Turn around, man.
After Nikki Stain is arrested for the sexual assaults in Visalia, he's brought into the police department to be questioned.
Go ahead and have a seat in that chair right over here. Okay.
And to the surprise of detectives, he seems to have a lot to say.
Nick, do you know why you're here today? Yeah, I do know why I'm here.
From the beginning of the interview, he knew why he was there for the Visalia cases, and we just let him talk.
I know I've done a couple things that here in Visalia that I shouldn't have done.
So when you say a couple things in Visalia, what are the couple things that you're talking about?
Oh, there's a couple times that I approached women that out on the street that and stuff and coerced them into having some kind of oral. And so those are things I shouldn't have done.
Against their will?
Yes.
Detectives then walk Nikki Stain through each of the sexual assaults he's accused of.
Suspect pulled sweatshirt over his face and then placed handgun in her side. He escorted the victim and concealed their location behind some bushes. Requested the victim unbutton her shirt.
That might have happened. I think that one happened.
She was standing alone waiting to catch a bus. Suspect approached the victim. Suspect told the victim not to run or he would kill her.
I say that sounds like me, but I don't think that was me.
The worst thing that any defense attorney can hear is when you're questioned about a crime, it's like, well, I don't know, but it sounds like me.
Do you recall what you wore during those?
I recall wearing a hoodie or something like that.
With my demeanor, I think really brought some comfort to him to really open up about our sexual assault cases.
So, I kind of had some bad things that go on in my life, and I could say that I've had a problem with I guess, sex or sex addiction. If you have my phone, you'll be able to see that because it has like 400 videos on it of probably 100 different women.
During my interview, he did mention that he began sleeping with prostitutes starting in high school all the way up until his arrest.
I had so many encounters with women. I'm talking about like paid for encounters or this or that, or like start chatting with them and then all the next thing we know we're doing something.
He did brag, seemed proud about his sexual promiscuity with prostitutes.
I'm a single guy for the last 2 years, and it seems like really the only women that pay me any attention are the younger ones.
He was happy to talk about himself and all the sexual things that he had done in his past. It was crazy. It was crazy.
I'll tell you the truth, I don't really think that hiring an escort or having a sugar babe or anything like that, I personally don't think that that's a wrong thing.
He talked about his bedroom looking similar to 50 Shades of Grey.
I had saw pictures of those types of rooms, dark rooms, on the internet. I said I wanted to paint it that way. Now everybody who sees it says it's 50 Shades of Grey.
When they did the search, and he had these silk robes in his closet and sex toys.
During our investigation, we learned that Nikki Stain was operating an Airbnb operation out of his home. He would also rent rooms out to younger females. He talked about providing for these young females.
Investigators also find what appears to be a fake Facebook profile where Nikki Stain calls himself Nick Steele and claims to be chairman of a Fortune 500 company.
His alter ego, Nick Steele,
yes,
online, pointed in a different direction.
Yes, I think more of a fantasy.
He also posted videos of himself on that Facebook page, going out to party.
Okay, I'm going out tonight.
Was he sort of baiting women online?
Oh, I don't believe so. I think it was more about, this is me. I'm capable of this. I'm so attractive. I'm so, my proudness is such that, these things happen in my life.
During our search warrant at his residence, we located that he had a wall plug camera in one of the roommates' bathrooms that was associated to a younger female.
There were also allegations of peeping Tom.
Yes. It's kind of a voyeurism, obviously, and then it steps into inappropriate actions.
Inappropriate actions that land Nikki Stain with a misdemeanor peeping charge. Stain pleads not guilty to the charge, which is eventually dropped.
He definitely had some sexual deviances.
But as Nikki Stain's defense attorney points out, sexual deviance doesn't necessarily equate to murder.
It was separate and apart. Usually people move forward as far as the seriousness of their crimes. And so it was odd that there was this homicide, but then later there's peeping Tom activity and assaults.
The violence seemed to de-escalate.
Yes.
And back in that interrogation room, when the conversation turns to Debbie Dorian's murder, Nikki Stain's not done talking yet.
The detectives there today before you guys arrested me, you brought up an interesting case. One that, it does shock me.
When detectives show up at the mall to confront Nikki Stain at his workplace, they ask him about Debbie Dorian. He claims he's never seen her before.
Have you ever seen that girl?
Nope.
Nope. You don't know her? Okay.
But when they get him into the interrogation room, he has a different story.
The detectives there today before you guys arrested me, you brought up an interesting case. I was with that girl, several times and stuff like that.
You were?
Yes, I was. So, to be honest with you, she was, I picked her up in Fresno there on the street there at one time. After I dropped her off, I thought that was going to be the last time I seen of her. Okay. And then she, found her way to my workplace, on other occasions and asked me if I, would want to again.
He acknowledged that he did know Debbie and that he had been to her apartment multiple times for sex.
The stunning allegation that Stain and Debbie had met for consensual sex is something prosecutors dispute, but his new defense team will now try to prove. Brian Pinto is the defense's lead investigator.
I spent a lot of hours in the jail with Nikki Stain. He's probably one of the most intelligent clients I've ever had, but he's also one of the most complicated and mysterious.
Brian attempted to track down coworkers and acquaintances from Stain's past to back up his story.
Did you have any verifiable evidence that they had met before or that this was consensual in any way?
A lot of people that he gave me that would potentially back that story up were people that he worked with, that he only remembered first names.
There was some evidence that she may have gone into his place of work, but, we weren't able to really chase those folks down because it was so long ago.
There was nothing to support that she had come into contact with him in any other way. It was completely concocted.
After his police interview, Nikki Stain is booked, fingerprinted, and now that he's under arrest, has no choice but to turn over his DNA. The authorities reach out to Beth, who spent years as Jane Doe number 1, with the news she never expected to get.
They told me that they got him. Say that again. It took me a couple times for them to tell me that they got him and that there was going to be a press conference the next day.
It was the last press conference that I held as a police chief, so it meant a lot to me.
Nikki Dwayne Stain is the primary suspect in the rape and murder of Debbie Dorian.
I locked myself in my room and I watched it. And I bawled my eyes out. And all of those emotions that came back hard.
Nikki Stain is every woman's nightmare.
And what did you mean by that?
Nikki Stain looks like an average guy. He looks like a normal person.
He blends into the background.
Yeah, he blends in.
Almost 12,000 days of waiting, searching, hoping, disappointments, and frustrations. What this arrest has finished is the struggle to always be searching.
Nikki Stain is charged with 4 counts of sexual assault in the Visalia attacks and for the murder of Debbie Dorian. In 2020, the Fresno DA's office takes the lead on prosecuting the cases. Stain pleads not guilty to all the charges.
I'm the City Hall and Courts reporter at ABC 30 Action News here in Fresno. It was definitely a big story to walk into as a 22-year-old just a few months out of college. Live at 5, clear to proceed. Nikki Stain could face... The contrast between the two sides of this courtroom really could not have been any different. On the right side of this courtroom, you had Deborah Miller and Caitlin Drake, two very straight-to-the-point senior deputy district attorneys. And on the other side, you had Jane Bolger, somebody who really believes in defending her client and protecting the process that everybody in this country is entitled to. Jane was the defense attorney of the very first court case I ever covered. And at one point, Jane had asked me how old I was. And when I told her, she said, "Gabe, I have pants older than you." It was the fall of 2023 when this preliminary hearing started, but in so many ways that courtroom went back to 1996.
The judge orders that no civilian witnesses can be shown on camera.
I put on the neighbor of who had seen the white male at Debbie's doorstep on that Tuesday.
He basically knocked on the door, and it wasn't a confrontational kind of encounter, but she let him in.
Nikki Stain matches the description. It makes you wonder whether or not the person that was seen in her apartment was Nikki Stain.
One of the items of evidence that I presented was the list that was located at Debbie's apartment on her kitchen table, which appeared to be a list of potential roommates. And what does it say by number 6?
By number 6, it has the name Nick, and then scratched out, or Rick. And it says, "We'll call Tuesday to 12 o'clock.
We'll call Tuesday, 12 o'clock?
Yeah.
What I believe happened is that Nikki Stain called Debbie on Tuesday, said, "I would like to come by and look at the apartment." She said, "Sure," gave him the address, and he showed up on her doorstep, and she let him in. I put Peter Dorian on the stand.
After years of not speaking publicly about his daughter's case, Peter Dorian has to recount those horrible moments when he finds her in her apartment.
What did you see when you entered Debbie's bedroom?
She was lying on the floor.
Was she moving?
No.
Is there anything else about Debbie that you noticed that morning?
Well, she was lying face up. Her mouth and nose had been taped shut with some gray colored tape, so that prevented her from breathing.
We had 2 of the sexual assault victims from Visalia testify at the preliminary hearing.
When you saw him in the courtroom, did anything register?
The eyes and the voice. The eyes and the voice, you're always going to remember that voice.
What went through your mind when you heard it?
That's him. Holy crap, that's him.
She was able to describe what happened to her in the courtroom in front of Nikki Stain. It was something to watch.
How dare you be able to go on living knowing what you did, that you have destroyed who knows how many people's lives, and you can continue your life like nothing happened. How dare you?
When prosecutors and the defense said that she was free to go, she just sat there and she wept. You could tell that she has never walked away from this, that it has been with her every single day.
And prosecutors have one more piece of evidence up their sleeve.
Hello, this call is from a correction facility.
Recordings of Nikki Stain's phone calls from jail.
Hello?
Hello, Mom.
And Nikki Stain just keeps talking.
This call is from a correction facility and is subject to monitoring and recording.
Can you hear me, Nick?
During the preliminary hearing, prosecutors introduced calls that Nikki Stain made to family members while he was being held in the Tulare County Jail. And on those calls, he doesn't hold back.
Yeah, I can hear you. You know what? Those hurting people and things like that was in my past. I know I need to get punished for it. I just know that I'll be here the rest of my life.
One could say that the jailhouse phone calls were a sense of admission because there was no denials.
But you're innocent till you're proven guilty in my book. You know what you did, we don't.
we're going to say that you're innocent until they prove otherwise, in my opinion. It's the way America works.
I'm guilty. I'm guilty. You know, I did some bad things. I'm not trying to kind of like hide them. You know, I mean, I'm ashamed of them, but you know, they're there now, so it's just like, you know, quit running from it and just take it.
Are you innocent of any of those crimes?
No, not really, Mom. I was kind of like involved in all of them.
To us, that's an admission that he committed all of these crimes, including Debbie Dorian.
Those revealing phone calls could be key evidence if the case proceeds to trial.
But the defense insists that Nikki Stain never admitted to killing Debbie Dorian, including in that police interrogation.
I did wrong, okay? And even the things that I did back, you know, here in Visalia, that those things are haunting me forever. But the thing in Fresno there, I didn't know that went down. I didn't know that happened. I didn't feel remorse for that or anything like that or anything because I didn't know that it happened.
During the preliminary hearing, the defense was trying to attack the investigation, specifically with the arrest of Maurice Dixon initially and the DNA testing originally.
So that's a mistake.
I'm not going to say it's a mistake, no.
You refuse to say that we're arresting the wrong man on faulty lab work is a mistake? Did you get the right
He
guy?
was eventually cleared.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
he was the wrong guy.
But prosecutors maintain that the DNA evidence in this case tells the whole story.
There was no other foreign DNA on Debbie's body. The only DNA located was Debbie Dorian's DNA and Nikki Dwayne Stain's DNA.
When the preliminary hearing wraps up, the judge decides there is enough evidence for the case to proceed to trial.
The defendant is held to answer on all counts and charges.
Prosecutors announced they're going to seek the death penalty. But ultimately, Nikki Stain is ready to make a deal.
Nikki Stain's case was heading toward a jury trial early next year, but now a possible deal with prosecutors.
Just 5 weeks after the judge had set a trial date, we got word that Nikki Stain would be entering a change of plea.
Stain's defense team had asked prosecutors if they would allow him to plead guilty to just the murder charge and dismiss the sexual assault charges.
I contacted the parents. Peter was on board because Nikki Stain would receive life without the possibility of parole, and he did not want to have to testify at jury trial. Sarah Loven had a different opinion, and she wanted him to admit and plead guilty to everything that he did.
And she wasn't the only one who felt that way.
Why did you feel so strongly that you wanted those sexual assaults?
Because those victims deserved to have him say, I did this, and I'm going to get sentenced for it.
I'm going to be punished.
That's right. And I am going to serve not just time for Debbie Dorian's murder, but for the crimes I committed against you.
Ultimately, Nikki Stain was willing to do that. He didn't want to go forward to trial.
The district attorney's office also agrees to forego the death penalty.
He would serve life without the possibility of parole.
Unlawfully and with malice aforethought committed murder against Deborah, Sarah, and Dorian. Mr. Stain, how do you plead?
Guilty.
Why plead guilty?
To save his life. To save his life. I believe if we had gone to trial, it would easily have been a death penalty verdict. I just knew that because we're emotion driven, it's almost impossible to be unbiased. We all have our biases. She was an attractive young woman. She was doing positive things in her life, going to school. Her life was just beginning. She had, parents that loved and adored her. And I just was fairly certain that he would end up with a death sentence.
The courtroom was full for Nikki Dwayne Stain's sentencing.
Court Department 62 is now in session. The Honorable Judge Harrell presiding.
Jane Doe #1 steps up to the podium and delivers her impact statement with cameras carefully trained on her hands.
My life changed forever that day. I tried moving on. I have tried to forget, To me, every man was him. I was always scared. I wish I was dead. I wish he did kill me. It would have been a lot better than having these thoughts in my head and flashbacks. The night playing over and over again in my head.
Your statement was incredibly powerful.
Hopefully it got through to him that I wish he would suffer just as much as all of us did. I hope that he knows that I got him. That's it.
I think you did go on.
And you also said you wanted to speak on behalf of other survivors.
Yes.
And give voice to them.
If anything comes of this, I would just hope that people come forward and people will get the help that they need. Because it took me a long time.
But the final words spoken in that courtroom would stun everyone.
It was a raw moment.
I screamed and screamed. Everything went dark. I knew my life was over.
I wanted people to know that Deb was a real person. She was a beautiful baby, a darling little girl. She went through all the things that children go through. These are her ballet slippers when she was 5. And these are her riding gloves. I just want people to know she had these little hands. They felt things, and they were sweet.
We have waited and searched for this murderer for 28 years and 10 months, 29 Christmases, and almost 29 birthdays.
Sarah Lovin was the last to deliver an impact statement. She shared what she thought Debbie would have wanted to say, speaking in her daughter's voice.
Adrenaline flooded my body. I screamed and screamed, but he didn't stop. He wrapped my head in duct tape, covering my mouth. I couldn't breathe. Everything went dark. I would never take a hike with John, the love of my life. Spend time with my mom. I wouldn't have a wedding. I wouldn't be a beautiful bride. My dad wouldn't walk me down the aisle. I knew my death would break my mom's heart and change my dad forever. The pain that they suffer is deeper than anyone can know. Though he took my precious Deb, he did not take my soul. I am wiser and stronger than ever from having to go through this ordeal. He has the rest of his life to pay for what he did, and he will pay for his evil actions.
It was a powerful statement. It was a powerful and emotional moment for everyone in the courtroom.
At this point, sir, you are remanded into the custody of Fresno County Sheriff to begin serving your time.
He no longer has the power. Whatever he wants for power, it's behind bars. To my dear Vince, you know how much this case has meant to us. You know how many years it has taken, and you've carried us all through this, and I love you.
You're about to harvest pomegranates. What's that moment like? How fulfilling it must be.
It's exciting to see all the hard work come to fruition. You saw a dry, leafless bush get leaves, and now they're big, red, and beautiful. It's like a cold case again. You put all that work into it, and we'll see if there's a rainbow at the end of it.
Finally having him behind bars must have been a real capstone to your career.
There were many capstones, but this is the one at the top.
She was a precious person, sweet and loving and smart, and a wonderful young lady.
A mother's never-ending love. Debbie's mother, Sarah, did get to meet and hug that brave survivor, Beth, in court.
As for Nicky Stain, David, his plea agreement included a provision that he forfeits his right to appeal his conviction. That's our program for tonight. Thanks for watching. I'm Deborah Roberts.
And I'm David Muir. From all of us here at 2020 and ABC News, good night.
bought this camcorder just so I could talk to you. So I just wanted to tell you hi, and I love you, and I miss you. I'm very proud of you.
My wife got the call at home, and they said Holly was missing.
I mean, the Army's got a missing soldier. That's a big deal.
We're now inside Fort Bragg. One of those soldiers goes missing. They would just jump into action.
We didn't know if this is someone that had kidnapped Holly or killed Holly.
That's 146. That was her apartment.
We could tell, looking through the back window, that place had been burned. She was not in there.
Several knives were missing from the knife block.
Then, bizarrely, a second female soldier goes missing.
Megan Tumo, she was supposed to go to work, and she didn't show up for work.
Are they just missing? Did they succumb to foul play? Like, you just don't know.
The mirror had a very large insignia drawn on it. That insignia was a zodiac sign.
While there's this massive search for Holly, these mysterious letters come in
from a person purporting to be reenacting the Zodiac murders.
This could be the same killer.
My name is Jesse James. For 17 years, we have lived with the pain of losing our daughter, Holly. It's something that cannot be explained in words. Recently, I decided to write to the person responsible for taking Holly from us. I'm not sure why, and I'm not sure what I'm reaching for, but it just feels like I need to express my thoughts. Many, many people loved Holly, and you took her from all of us. I still have episodes of grief that I'm unable to control. Why did he choose Holly? I've decided to reach out and try to discover that.
So right now, I'm on my way to Fort Bragg, North Carolina. It's one of the largest military bases in the world. Some say that this base right here is America's first line of defense. I'm investigating a mysterious disappearance of an Army nurse. Her name is Second Lieutenant Holly Lynn James. When Holly fails to show up for her shift at Womack Army Medical Center, it causes concern because it's something totally out of character for any soldier.
I was driving back to Fort Bragg from Iowa, and I received a text from a friend at work asking me when the last time I heard from Holly was. It was unusual. Holly was very dependable, and it's just, you know, being an Army officer, it was kind of unheard of to not show up for work.
Her co-workers went to her apartment, and when they got there, they found that she wasn't there and it had been set on fire. So they called the police.
Pretty much as soon as Holly went missing, I heard about it. Our homicide team heard about it. It was very concerning. She had just sort of disappeared into thin air.
This is the face of the missing Fort Bragg soldier. Has not been seen since Wednesday.
Holly was driven by ambition, an unshakable work ethic, and felt a powerful call to serve her country.
A lot of us are military in our family, and she wanted to go out and do something great.
Holly's younger brother, Bo, a Marine himself, says that Holly had found her calling. As a nurse, were you pretty proud of her?
Absolutely, yeah. They're absolutely lifesavers.
She wanted to go to Iraq. I said, why would you want to go to Iraq, to the war zone? And she said, Dad, I just think I can help soldiers if I'm out there as a first responder in a war zone. I can do more good and help more soldiers.
Although Holly never served in combat and was ultimately stationed in the U.S., she was going places, and by age 23 had become a second lieutenant in the United States Army.
Even though I was a sergeant major, she was technically a higher rank than me starting out, you know, and I was pretty proud of that. They assigned her to the mother-baby ward at Womack. She just always wanted to be in the thick of things.
She was a floor nurse. She loved helping people all the time, and she really loved children.
Actually, at the time, Holly was raising a couple of children on her own, born from a relationship with her ex-boyfriend from her hometown of Dubuque, Iowa. Then in 2007, she met this 22-year-old Marine, Corporal John Wymonk, a combat engineer who was stationed along with her brother Bo at Marine Corps Base Camp Lejeune. Colonel Kirk Cordova was John Wymonk's commanding officer.
He's a non-commissioned officer working towards being a sergeant and probably one of the best ranks in the Marine Corps. So he was very proficient, I can tell you that.
We deployed together. A lot of times we were looking for explosives or blowing things up. He was very good at our robots that we used for looking for explosives or setting them.
I was embedded in the war zone with the Marines in the invasion of Iraq in 2003. The level of danger was similar to what they experienced.
Marines continue to bring their heavy armor north.
And you realize just how intense their jobs really are. Why did you decide you wanted to introduce him to your sister, Holly?
Everything he said just seemed so funny. And I thought Holly deserved some humor in her life too.
She outranked him. She was an officer and he was an enlisted man, lower enlisted man.
The couple eventually married and shared an apartment together in Fayetteville, just outside the gates of Fort Bragg. Wymonk lived 2 hours away at Camp Lejeune, but would visit on weekends.
Holly and John seemed happy. They seemed like a good match. Being a dual military couple, it's just that extra layer of complication. You're just apart quite a bit.
During Wymonk's deployment, Holly bridged the distance with heartfelt video messages.
I bought this camcorder just so I could talk to you. So I just wanted to tell you hi, and I love you, and I miss you. I'm very proud of you.
There was a number of videos that she had made for him, you know, and they were sweet.
I'm pretty excited. You'll be here in 2 months.
She would talk about, you know, how much she loved him, how much she was looking forward to him coming back.
I didn't talk to you, so I just wanted to send you a quick hi and let you know that everything's okay.
Just being a sweet gal.
Together, they were rising in the military ranks, newly married, full of hope, but everything would change on that terrible night Holly went missing.
There is still no official word on the whereabouts and the fate of Army Lieutenant Holly Wymonk.
Investigators speak with Wymonk, who says that he was hours away at Camp Lejeune and knew nothing about Holly's whereabouts.
My wife got the call at home, and they said Holly was missing.
Police and federal investigators are on the case. Crime scene tape surrounds the apartment complex.
I began to see reports on the internet. The first report I saw was the police there, the military there, and they were towing her car away from the apartment complex.
There was a lot of interest locally and nationally about what had happened to Holly.
I had reporters on my doorstep, and they were asking if I knew anything about Holly, what could I tell them? I think that's when I realized it was bigger than what I was imagining.
At this point, we didn't know if this was a random act of violence that occurred, or if this is someone that had kidnapped Holly or killed Holly.
It's currently under investigation, and we're working with Fort Bragg trying to locate this person.
People are scared, people are worried, and they've got to go fast to try to find her.
It was all happening so rapidly, so quick.
You decided to fly out to see exactly what's happening.
I did.
But your main job was really to find her.
I came here on a mission. I was scared to death because I was afraid of what I was going to find.
And when investigators are given the all clear to enter Holly's apartment,
there was a note that had survived the fire. This letter.
What or who will they uncover? Oh, look at the cheeks there.
I know, huge cheeks, you know.
She's adorable.
Really very cute, huh? She was a little daddy's girl. She loved working at that hospital. I had no doubt she was going to stay in the Army because she loved it that much.
She found the job she loves.
Yep, she did.
She was up for the challenge. And from what I know, I think she did great.
She worked really hard so she'd be able to get a good life and a good job to be able to raise us better.
At the time of Holly's disappearance in July of 2008, her children, Harper, just 7, and 3-year-old Kendall, were far from the chaos, visiting their father back in Iowa.
We were not there when our mom went missing.
Authorities finally released the name and picture of 2nd Lieutenant Holly Wymunk, a nurse at Womack Army Medical Center.
You decided to fly out to see exactly what's happening.
I did. You know, my first thought was go to the media like I've seen other families do. Ask Holly to surface, or if somebody's got Holly, ask them to bring her back, you know. And then I thought I should do that from Fayetteville. I should do that from Fort Bragg. Because if she is around there, you know, I can say, here I am, right here, and you can come to see me.
We're in constant contact with the family.
What exactly did the investigators tell you?
Well, that evening when I got here and I met with the chief of detectives, one of the first questions I said is my daughter dead? And he said, we can't say that. He said, because that hasn't been proven. But he said, I can tell you we have grave, grave concern.
Once the flames were out, investigators combed through the charred remains of Holly's apartment, searching for anything the fire had not destroyed.
For the second day in a row, state and federal agents scoured the young woman's burned apartment.
The case would soon fall to Detective Jeff Locklear of the Fayetteville Police Department, the man tasked with uncovering what happened to Holly. What was your reaction when you learned that the woman that's missing was a soldier?
My partner and I, we were surprised. At that time, you know, the whole city was kind of on edge.
How far are we from her apartment?
So as the crow flies, maybe a mile, not very far at all. All of that stuff was pretty centralized around the mall area of Fayetteville.
Holly's apartment sits along this busy stretch of road just 5 miles outside the gates of Fort Bragg, where she worked as an Army nurse.
And her apartment building was actually the first building that you come to on the right.
Down here, 146.
Yep, 146. Well, as soon as we got here, we could tell, you know, looking through the back window, that place had been burned. She, of course, was not in there.
What's the first thing you saw when you walked in?
Well, I think a better question would be what was the first thing that I smelled, and that was gasoline. And there was so much gasoline in the apartment poured on the floor and on the carpet that as my partner and I would walk, it would kind of gush up next to our chute. So the fire department was really concerned about it. They said a spark could light this whole place up.
Why was it the building was not completely burnt to the ground?
Anybody can strike a match, but you got to know, you got to have enough air. With this amount of gasoline that was poured in the apartment, they didn't have enough air. They should have left the door open to have vented it more, and we would have had a more complete fire.
So this was an arson, but not a very talented arson.
Exactly.
So in 2008, I was a forensic technician dispatched via radio to respond out to an apartment fire at that time. I initially just started taking photographs around. There's a certain level of emotion that teeters on excitement and anxiousness because you're kind of afraid of what you might find.
By the front door, investigators discovered Holly's purse, still holding her ID, credit cards, her keys, and phone. For the detectives, the abandoned belongings are a red flag.
Typically, being a woman myself, if I were to go off somewhere, my purse and at least my personal belongings, credit cards, things of that nature would have come with me.
As investigators push deeper into the apartment, the kitchen reveals its own disturbing clue.
I noticed that there was a knife block sitting over on the counter, and several knives were missing from the knife block.
We couldn't find any of those knives like in a drawer or maybe dirty in the sink. They were missing from that house altogether.
We knew that could have been used as some sort of a weapon, so we certainly took note of that as well.
The missing knives raised the grim possibility that Holly was stabbed. There were also signs of blood spatter in her bedroom, along with another disturbing piece of evidence.
Probably one of the most alarming things about the master bedroom is, one, the carpet, the large amount of carpet that had been cut from around the door frame. It was almost, carved precisely to cut out a specific shape. So all of the bedding had been removed to include the pillowcases. So that was a little out of the norm as well, of a home that had been lived in where there was absolutely no bed linen on it at all.
Then eagle-eyed detectives spot something easy to miss, a single bullet hole in the closet door.
Something potentially could have occurred right in front of the closet.
Amid the devastation, one piece of evidence survived, and it would become the investigation's biggest clue.
I just happened to notice an odd scrap of paper in the middle of the hallway. Then once I uncrumpled the ball of paper, I notified Detective Locklear that there was a message on it.
A note survived the fire.
This letter.
We just thought it might have just been some trash, some refuge, whatever, until we unraveled it.
Can you read that?
It says something to the effect of, she shot herself, and I tried to make it look like an accident.
The note, scrawled in jagged handwriting and unsigned, hinted at Holly's fate, but raised more questions than answers.
It wasn't consistent with what we were seeing, but obviously it was an important piece of evidence that we took note of.
Was the note a confession or a calculated attempt to throw investigators off the trail?
Even the smallest details are something that it may be insignificant now, but down the line it might be one of the most critical pieces of evidence that you have.
When Holly's father arrives at the scene, the evidence looks grim, and yet he holds out hope.
I believed Holly was alive. I said, I'm going to work to try to get her back here, and I'm going to do everything that I can do to try to get her back.
The thought was that she still could be alive and that we could find her, but we knew this also could end very tragically.
And with an active duty soldier missing, the U.S. Army search and rescue mission kicks into high gear.
I mean, the Army's got a missing soldier, and that's a big deal.
We'll dedicate as many people as we have because this is one of our own. That's a sister.
This young mother, this soldier is missing. The clock was ticking.
But where was Holly? And is there a hidden secret in this last photo taken of her before she vanished? We're now inside Fort Bragg, North Carolina, about 250 square miles, about 50,000 active duty soldiers. Fort Bragg is a city unto itself, sprawling, relentless, and brimming with power. Soldiers here often call it the center of the military universe. And when 2nd Lieutenant Holly James goes missing, the U.S. Army mobilizes fast, launching an all-out search, working around the clock to find answers.
Good to see you.
Special Agent Al Diaz is the man in charge of the Army's Criminal Investigation Division at Fort Bragg. What do you remember when the news came out that Holly was missing?
Just like any time a service member shows up missing, there's just that natural sense of concern. And then what we can do to help local law enforcement find her.
Does it become 24 hours a day?
Absolutely. I mean, you want to put as much effort and resources to it until you find the individual. Are they just missing? Did they succumb to foul play? Like, you just don't know.
Fort Bragg sits like a fortress. At its heart is Womack Medical Center, where Holly worked as an Army nurse. With 13 access points in and out, CID's task was clear: reconstruct Holly's every step in the days before she vanished. Adam Armstrong is a special agent with CID.
All right, so you get the call from the police about what was happening that afternoon. So when we get that, we'll immediately get a picture of her out.
so we can start working on the reward posters and all that. And then we start figuring out, okay, how can we start putting together elements to go out and start searching?
Tell us where we're going.
Right now, we're just heading back to the one side of base where Holly was last seen.
Investigators learned that just 2 nights before she was reported missing, Holly had been seen at a late-night softball game on base. So this is the last place that she was
right here on the right-hand side.
So this was the 8th, 2 days before they discovered that she was missing. This is where she was.
And so a sergeant first class had invited her out to come watch. And then after the game, she actually approached him. He actually helped out a lot. Played a big role in understanding the last time that she was seen.
This is the last photo of Holly taken just before she disappeared.
He said she was happy that night, bubbly, and just seemed to be in good spirits. With the cell phone analysis, and they were able to identify that she did leave the base and she did make it home.
Something had happened to Holly. You just felt like you had to get here?
Had to come.
While Army investigators combed the base, Holly's father, Jesse James, launches his own search for answers.
I had to get to Fort Bragg, so I had to think about how I was going to get sort of control of the situation.
Your father was on a mission to try to figure out what happened to his daughter, to your sister.
Absolutely. He was on a mission, and 10 seconds of hearing that his daughter was missing, he wasn't going to let it go, nor should he.
Thinking about my grandfather dropping everything to fly to Fayetteville and find her, that's a man who loves his daughter.
And it shows how loving and caring he is, and how deeply he loves his family.
The thought occurred to me that I'm going to go to the bank and see if she had any charges on her checking account or credit card since she disappeared. I got up and drove over to the bank. I said, are there any recent charges in the past day to her credit card or her checking account?
A bank attorney confirms that there had been activity on Holly's account, charges dated the very day she vanished. So there was hope.
Oh, let's see. I walked away stepping lightly as quickly as I could, called Detective Locklear, and he almost hung up on me. He wanted to call that bank to get a warrant to get the checking account information.
But to Jesse's disappointment, what seems like a promising lead goes nowhere. It turns out those transactions were older ones, charges that had only just been cleared.
Took all the wind out of me and was right back where we started.
Desperate for answers, Jesse comes here to Holly's workplace at Womack Medical Center to try to retrace his daughter's footsteps. Yeah, so this is where she was, huh?
It is where she was. The morning after I got here, I just walked in and introduced myself, and I could just feel a shockwave go through the unit, you know, because they were experiencing it just like we were. She loved these people, and she loved the people she worked with. I could sense a presence here of Holly. I could see her just running the hall. She never walked slow. I could see her just rushing through these hallways, and I could feel that. And I thought, I just might be putting my feet where her feet were, and that affected me.
Days into the investigation, there is still no sign of Holly, but then an unexpected twist, a possible link to another female soldier who had also gone missing from Fort Bragg.
These mysterious letters come into the Fayetteville Observer as well as the Fayetteville Police Department.
CID said, look, we got a second female soldier that's missing and has possibly been harmed.
We wondered, could this be connected to Holly's case?
Are we dealing with a copycat here?
A disturbing letter, marked with a chilling symbol.
And there it is on that mirror in the lipstick.
And could there be a connection to Holly?
I'm like, I don't know, this has never happened. It's like something you see in a movie. When I left the crime scene, I didn't think that we would find her alive.
Summer 2008, Holly Lynn James has vanished. Teams of investigators search for clues in a burned out apartment near Fort Bragg Army Base. But it turns out Holly's not the only female soldier in the area to go missing that June. And right at the same time, there's 2 different investigations, also with soldiers, also females.
It's 2 females now. Both are in the military, and both of the situations are nothing about them is normal. It was getting interesting here at the Fayetteville Police Department.
About a month before Holly disappeared, another female soldier from Fort Bragg went missing. The police got a call saying that there was a strange odor coming out of this hotel, and that took a chilling turn.
A deceased person was located inside room 143. She was dressed in a bathing suit, almost as like she had just left the pool. And then when the maintenance guy found her, the water was still running in the bathtub.
She was submerged in the bathtub, and so there was water everywhere. There was actually a towel along the bottom edge of the door, so whoever had done it was thinking ahead. And so that way the water couldn't get out to alert anybody.
This room had been rented to a Megan Tuma. Megan was a soldier, an active duty soldier.
23-year-old Megan Tuma was a dental specialist who had been with the Army for 5 years. Her body was found in a hotel room June 21st. She was 7 months pregnant and may have been dead for days.
Megan Tuma had newly transferred to Fort Bragg from a military base in Germany. She was supposed to go to work, and she didn't show up for work. They did not notice that she was missing.
She's found on the 21st of June. The last time she was seen, I believe, was 15 June. And so there's about a 6-day gap. And then the hotel that she was staying in off post, she had one of those do not disturbs on. And so that's why she was in there for a lengthy time without anybody coming in.
So she was in an advanced state of decomposition. Some evidence of a struggle, some of what we believe to be blood, light blood transfer on the wall.
So she was murdered in that hotel.
The autopsy revealed she had been strangled. We flipped the switch then and it went to a homicide investigation. There was something else in the room, though, that made us really suspicious. The mirror outside the bathroom had a very large insignia drawn on it in lipstick. That insignia that was drawn there was the zodiac sign. A couple of days later, we get a letter through the mail from a person purporting to be somebody who is reenacting the Zodiac murders from the West Coast.
From 1968 to 1974, several newspapers in the San Francisco area received a series of anonymous letters from the self-proclaimed Zodiac killer who claimed credit for up to 37 murders. The 2007 movie Zodiac put one of America's biggest unsolved murder cases on the big screen.
It's unsigned except for a symbol. Is it me? Or does that look like a gun sign?
A letter has surfaced claiming the murder is a work of a serial killer.
Good morning, Robin. That letter certainly has gotten everyone's attention. In a twisted case with very few leads, police have been forced to pay particular attention to this letter sent to a local newspaper. The writer signed the letter with a symbol made famous by the infamous Zodiac killer of the 1960s.
The Fayetteville Observer received a letter, and this is what the letter said. I am responsible for the dead body that was found on Saturday, June 21st at 11:30 in room 143. I confess that I have killed many times before in several states, but now I will start using my role model's signature.
We were sitting down in a meeting with CID about this exact letter when we got the call to go out to Holly's apartment. We were like, what is going on here? It's like something you see in a movie. The guy's trying to communicate with the police by way of mail.
And you're looking at the possibility this could be the same killer.
Of course, the same symbol is on the bottom of this letter that was written on the mirror in the hotel room in the lipstick. So are we dealing with a copycat here?
We very much thought that it was a possibility these were connected. Was Holly this killer's next victim, which would have been just a couple of weeks after Megan Tuma's murder. So it was certainly of interest and of concern in the disappearance of Holly.
The public is demanding answers. Now people are making phone calls, they're calling the chief, the city council. Hey, is there a serial killer in Fayetteville?
But as investigators dig deeper into the Megan Tuma case, they begin to question that serial killer theory. Detectives are able to uncover evidence that her murder might have been a highly personal one. And the trail leads to someone very close to her.
She had began a relationship with an individual and she had become pregnant as a result of that relationship. Well, it turns out he was married. He was in the military on the same base in Germany that Megan was assigned to. And we did a search warrant on his house, and you wouldn't believe it, he was actually actively taking a crime scene class at a local college here in Fayetteville.
Authorities begin to close in on the man that they think might be responsible for Megan's murder. And in that parallel investigation, detectives also uncover evidence that Holly's disappearance also might not have been random, that it too could have been a highly personal crime.
It was obvious that something terrible had happened to Holly, and we were fairly certain that it was someone close to her that had done it.
Could a woman connected to John Wymunk with a possible grudge against Holly be responsible for her disappearance? She was a threat?
She was a threat.
Two women stationed at Fort Bragg have met with tragedy. Fayetteville, North Carolina is a town on edge.
I think it's horrible what happened.
Stop in your tracks. The community was scared. It sort of put a lot of pressure on us as well. The public is wanting to know, what are we doing about it?
But then a huge development in the Megan Tuma case as Fayetteville police close in on the person they suspect is responsible for her murder.
Police in North Carolina are expected to offer details today about the death of a pregnant Fort Bragg soldier.
Who was it that was ultimately found to be the murderer in this case?
The person that was responsible for taking Megan Tuma's life was Edgar Patino. He was the father of her child that she was carrying.
And then the person claiming to have killed her had sent letters to the newspaper and to the police claiming to be like the Zodiac killer.
We were able to prove that the letters that were sent were typed at our suspect's house by a typewriter in our suspect's room.
Edgar was also married at the time, and he had killed Megan Tuma because she was pregnant with a child, and yet he was still married and he wanted to remain with his wife.
And he's the one that set that crime scene up. He's the one that drew that Zodiac sign on the mirror.
Patino was playing games with the cops, trying to be too clever for his own good and lead them astray, and I don't think they ever really bought it.
So at that point, we had ruled out that the killer of Megan Tuma was also the killer or person responsible for the disappearance of Holly.
So now the race is on to find the culprit behind Holly's disappearance. A review of the evidence at the crime scene has investigators convinced that Holly knew her assailant.
There was no evidence that there was an intruder who had forced their way into the home through the door, through a window, or something like that.
We never thought that some stranger walking down Morganton Road just decided to peep through this girl's window and do all of this. We were fairly certain that the person that had done all these things knew her and that she knew that person.
Did it seem to indicate that this may have been done by somebody who knew the details of that apartment?
Holly either let that person in or that person made his way into the apartment by some other means, possibly by a key.
Detectives believe that whoever was in Holly's apartment also tried to cover up evidence of what happened there.
We found actually a carpet cleaner, and we tested that carpet cleaner, and it tested positive for blood on a preliminary test. Just from what I'd seen, the reaction we got from the luminol, the amount of carpet that was cut from the floor in the bedroom, The bed sheets and clothing and stuff had been taken off the bed. All those were indicators for me that there had been at least some measure of crime scene cleanup that had tried to take place.
Whoever did this might have tried to cover their tracks, but that crumpled letter was left behind.
It appeared that whoever wrote that note was inside the apartment when this terrible thing happened to Holly, but it does not identify who they were or what their relationship to Holly was.
The person that wrote this letter is the person that tried to burn that apartment, which is the person that knows where Holly's at. That's the way I was looking at it.
At the time of Holly's disappearance, we knew she was going through a tumultuous time in her life.
As investigators look into Holly's personal life for clues, they learned that about 8 months before she went missing, Holly had filed a request for a temporary restraining order against an ex-girlfriend of her husband named Lindsay. In the filing, Holly alleges that for 18 months, the defendant has continuously posted pictures of herself and my spouse on the internet with comments directed at me and claims I have changed my phone number 6 times.
Holly would always call Lindsay John's little girlfriend. I think there was a lot of yelling, a lot of swearing. Holly was getting exhausted because of the bombardment. I think she was just at the end of her rope.
Lindsay denied harassing Holly. In fact, she tells investigators Holly was the one harassing her, and she was never served with Holly's request for a restraining order.
She was considered a threat. That's why we wanted to look at her, because we had to consider her.
But when investigators talk to her, she denies having anything to do with Holly's disappearance. They also discover she had an alibi on the date Holly disappeared.
What did she say?
She provided a full breakdown of her timeline leading up to the disappearance of Holly.
She was not in Fayetteville the night Holly went missing.
So there was no evidence whatsoever to charge her for what happened to Holly?
She had no criminal culpability in this at all.
While Lindsay is fully cleared, investigators say she provides them with some revealing information about John Wymonk's activities the night of Holly's disappearance.
She actually told us about a phone call that she had with John, and John said that he was actually on his way to Fayetteville. So that was a key piece of evidence for us.
When she called him, he was like, I'm on my way, I can't do this anymore.
Why would he reveal this to her?
That's what we had to look at.
As investigators learn more about John Wymonk, they decide to bring him in again to answer questions about his wife's disappearance.
I'm at the point where I have no idea what's going on, okay? This is my wife. What the is going on with my wife?
That's what we're all trying to find out.
And a shocking discovery in the middle of nowhere will bring yet another Marine into the frame.
Guess where I just come from? There's soot and dirt on my shoe. Why do you think there's soot and dirt on my shoe? How am I supposed to believe anything that you say? For God's sake, son, I need to find this woman. I got to do something for these kids.
Let you know that everything's okay. I'll talk to you later, baby.
Tell him it's a Chevy.
Chevy.
This young mother, this soldier is missing. The clock was ticking.
What's going on with my wife? You know what I mean?
That's what we're all trying to find out.
Here was a mysterious person running through the parking lot and getting into a black pickup truck.
Today is the day of salvation. You better get on board right now.
What he specifically said is, are y'all looking for a blonde girl?
If you somehow committed a perfect murder and left no evidence, you could get away with it.
He's like, what's the worst you've ever done? He said the worst thing I've ever done is killed somebody.
He carved her name into a bullet and told her, this one's for you.
It's come to Jesus time. Now you tell me the rest of it. Tell me the rest of it.
For many years, I woke up at 4 a.m., went to the basement so I could cry, and called out for my daughter. When I had contacted you, I had no idea it would be so complicated. You stole my daughter from me.
Holly was a second lieutenant nurse corps officer. She was assigned to Womack Army Medical Center at Fort Bragg. All of her patients loved her. Her coworkers loved her.
That morning of the 10th of July, that was the first indication that something strange had happened.
She didn't show up for work, and she wouldn't answer any of the calls from her friends. And for them, that was a big deal.
Her co-workers there became concerned, so they went to her apartment and found that it had been set on fire.
But what the scene did tell us was that something horrible had happened inside that apartment.
You just don't know the full extent of what has occurred, but you're also kind of afraid of what you might find.
Your father was on a mission to try to figure out what happened to his daughter.
He was on a mission and he wasn't gonna let it go.
I was living like in two different worlds, I think. One believing that she's alive, another that she's dead.
So this young mother, this soldier is missing. The clock was ticking.
There's a lot of pressure on us.
It had been 3 days since Holly James had disappeared. Police had taken a close look at John Wymonk's former girlfriend, but investigators discovered that she had an alibi for the night Holly went missing and was nowhere near Fayetteville.
What was her demeanor when you were talking to her, investigating?
She was scared that she had been drawn into this mess.
She was ruled out as a suspect in the investigation, but she had provided information that was helpful.
Investigators say the former girlfriend is able to provide them with an inside look at the relationship between John and Holly.
They had been married for approximately a year, but towards the end of this 1-year marriage, it had become rather complicated between them.
Holly's brother, Bo, says the phone calls between John and Holly were becoming increasingly volatile.
He would be on the phone and then he would be just screaming at her.
You're watching him scream and you could hear your sister Holly reacting to that. What was she doing?
Crying, telling him to stop. And I felt like, well, I need to say something, but at the same time I thought, well, this is a married couple. I thought about if somebody tried doing that to me, it might upset me.
As investigators looked deeper into their relationship, they learned from friends close to Holly that John seemed insecure, that he held a lower rank than his wife.
I think it was something of a resentment that she was a woman and she outranked him.
John Wymonk was a corporal?
Yes.
So his level of skills was pretty high end?
I would say it was good. He's still honing his skills and still learning.
Her being an officer, she outranked him, and he would always tell her, "You're not a real officer," things like that, just putting her down.
We had a non-commissioned officer married to an Army second lieutenant. That just doesn't happen. That's the first time in my whole career that I had seen something like that.
According to Holly's friends, it was clear that John's attitude and frequent yelling directed towards his wife and distance between their bases was putting a strain on the relationship.
I didn't talk to you, so I just wanted to send you a quick hi and let you know that everything's okay.
They lived 2.5 hours apart. Eventually their marriage became estranged.
She had put up with the emotional abuse, and I think she finally realized that it wasn't going to get any better.
And as investigators continued to dig, they begin to realize that the alleged abuse may have been more than emotional.
We had done a number of interviews with her friends, some of the ladies that worked with her at Womack. First thing they told us was how violent John had been in the past.
Armed with these insights into Holly and John's marriage, investigators head to Camp Lejeune to talk with him.
This is where the Marines are. They have a lot of questions for Holly's husband, John Wymonk, about where he was and what he did that night.
NCIS agent brought him in from the command, interviewed him just to try and figure out what was going on and what he knew about Holly's whereabouts.
Hey, John. Here's my guide book. Hey, John.
How you doing, sir?
You set this hot coffee down, buddy.
What's doing?
John, Jeff Locklear from up in Fayetteville.
He expressed that there were concerns for his wife, that he did not know where she was.
I'm at the point where I have no idea what's going on, okay? This is my wife. Right, everybody knows that. That is my apartment. What the is going on with my wife? You know what I mean?
That's what we're all trying to find out, man.
After a brief conversation, the agent conducting the interview noticed a smell of alcohol, and that Corporal Wymonk was likely intoxicated or under the influence of alcohol.
I have been drinking.
Okay.
And I don't want the things that I say to be turned around.
I don't want to talk with you now that I can smell the odor of alcohol in you. I don't want to talk to you about legal stuff while that's even a question in my mind. Let's handle all that tomorrow.
So he's free to go. He's not in custody or whatever.
So what did you learn in this investigation here?
It gives me a chance to look him in his eye. It gives me a chance to smell him. There's a difference between regular sweating and stress sweat. You can smell that guy.
Really? So you knew at that point?
Yeah, he ain't telling me everything, right?
In any type of case where we have a missing person, we have suspicious circumstances. I mean, the spouse is obviously a person of interest. NCIS will immediately look at them and trying to establish, are they related or are they unrelated? Either way.
We continue to gather evidence, to interview people, really focus in on John's movements and whereabouts around July 9th.
But as investigators focus their attention on John Wymonk, they are also conducting a canvass of Holly's apartment complex and get a tip that is about to pay off in a big way.
Here was a mysterious person running through the parking lot and getting into a black pickup truck. It gave us something to go on. It was a turning point in the investigation.
As investigators continue their urgent search for any leads linked to Holly's disappearance, they get their first big break in the case at her apartment complex.
We began interviewing neighbors. Did anybody see anything? Did anybody hear anything?
We interviewed one young lady, and she said that the night that apartment was burned, she was outside walking her dog. And she said that she saw a guy running through the shadows. She said he was purposely trying to stay in the shadows, and that he had dark clothing on, and that he was a white male. She did distinctly remember him running out to a truck.
It gave us something to go on.
Investigators talked to anyone involved in Holly's life to find out more details about that truck and who it may have belonged to, including at Camp Lejeune, where she often spent time with her husband.
As the police canvassed and interviewed people at Camp Lejeune, they found out that a young Marine named Kyle had been asking around about borrowing a pickup truck to help a friend move some things, and that was in the time period that Holly had disappeared.
Kyle is in fact Lance Corporal Kyle Alden, and investigators discover the identity of the man who he said he was helping to move. It was none other than Holly's husband, John Wymonk.
This became a very important piece of information, so we wanted to talk to Kyle and see if we could connect the dots.
Hey, buddy.
Hello, sir.
Hey, I'm Locklear.
Alden is brought in for an interview at Camp Lejeune with Detective Jeff Locklear.
This apartment, we got a fire at an apartment.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Do you know who owns that apartment? Without me even getting into specifics, go ahead and tell me who owns the apartment in Fayetteville. Who used to live there?
John Wymonk.
John Wymonk. And you know John?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
So you had all this evidence. You go to interview Alden, so you treat him like your buddy, to be somebody who you want to be nice to.
Never had to raise my voice to him. Weren't cussing and yelling at him. Weren't accusing him of anything. Just going through and stuff, and kind of set the stage for him to begin to let his guard down some.
And you guys get to Fayetteville. And you went and picked up the stuff?
We get to Fayetteville, walked to the back of the apartment building, grabbed the grill, left it over the railing, and put it in the truck.
So you guys didn't go inside his old apartment?
No, sir.
Kyle Alden tells Locklear that he and Wymonk went to Holly's apartment but could not get inside. He then says that they left. He went back home to go sleep with his wife, but it turns out that Locklear had already spoken to Alden's wife.
She says, I don't know what the heck's going on, okay? But not only that, but he's telling me to cover him. Okay?
He was lying about large elements of the story.
This is true.
At this point of the interview, Locklear decides to dramatically up the ante with Alden.
For God's sake, son, I need to find this woman. I got to do something for these kids. Tell me. Help me. Help me. Help you. That life raft's out there. I need for you to grab it. I need for you to hold on to it. If you don't get it right now, okay, tomorrow is going to be too late.
Yes, sir.
I'm telling you. For God's sake, son, tell me. Tell me. Tell me. Now's the time. Yesterday was history.
Yes, sir.
Tomorrow's a mystery. Today is what we're dealing with. Today is the day of salvation. You better get on board right now.
Yes, sir.
He seems to be holding back. We think he knows more than he's telling us.
Did John hurt Holly?
I have no idea.
Do you think John hurt Holly?
Kinda, but I hope not.
I do too. I would love for Holly to call me right now. That ain't gonna happen.
But as Detective Locklear is turning the screws on Kyle Alden, the interview is suddenly interrupted.
And somebody came and knocked on the interview door.
Go outside and talk to the boss a minute.
If somebody's stopping the interview, the building better be on fire. But somebody did.
A 911 call has come in from a forestry service in nearby Onslow County.
You what? Yes, you heard me right.
That could lead to happiness or heartache.
What he specifically said is, are y'all looking for a blonde girl?
It had been 4 days since Lieutenant Holly James had vanished, and at this point, John Wymonk has emerged as the prime suspect in the disappearance of his wife, a fact not lost on his commanding officer, Colonel Kirk Cordova.
The prime suspect was a Marine, and it was one of my Marines.
And given the reputation that he had, did you think at that time that maybe he is somebody that could be guilty of this?
Yes, given his nature and the fact that he's somewhat of a hothead and wanted to be in control all the time. As soon as I heard Wymonk was our prime suspect, I assigned somebody to him and make sure he didn't leave, didn't run, so we knew where he was at all times.
While investigators methodically build their case against Wymonk, Jesse James decides to take a more direct approach, confronting him in person. What did he say exactly to you?
I drove out to Camp Lejeune, and he was with like 3 friends. I saw some arrogance, saw that he was drinking. I just leaned into him very, very close. And I said, John, if you somehow committed a perfect murder and left no evidence behind and no one but you knows it, there's a sliver of chance that you could get away with it. But I said, if one person knows, you're gonna die for the crime.
What'd you read in his face?
Fear. Fear that all the arrogance was gone. If I'd have had a gun that day, I would have killed him.
I want you to tell me what happened. I gotta find Holly. For God's sakes, where's Holly at?
I do not know.
Okay.
Police continue to try and chip away at Wymonk's fellow Marine, Kyle Alden, but if he knows anything about Holly's disappearance, he's not giving up the goods.
Investigators knew he wasn't telling the truth and that he was hiding something.
He was stonewalling the investigation.
Oh yeah. I was surprised that he could hold out as long as he held out.
So he was in the middle of an interview, and suddenly some information came in that something was found at this field about 15 miles away from
Camp Lejeune.
NCIS received a phone call. What we discovered was that the North Carolina Forestry Service had responded to a fire in a wooded area in Sneads Ferry, North Carolina.
So when those guys got to the scene and they go over there, it was pretty clear that there's a body in a shallow grave that looks like someone has tried to burn. They put the call in to the sheriff's office.
We're down here on this fire. We need Sheriff's Department down here for possible burned up body. You what? Yes, you heard me right.
When they called you, they knew it was a body.
They said, we believe we found a burial site, and this might be the missing female from Fayetteville.
What he specifically said is, are y'all looking for a blonde girl? And obviously, that hit really close to home. It was a sad day in that we knew what had ultimately happened to Holly.
The authorities shifted their focus here to Sneads Ferry, North Carolina. This is about 130 miles away where Holly was living in her apartment, only about 15 miles away from Camp Lejeune.
If you were looking to hide a body, it would be a good place to do it. It's a very remote spot.
We drove out there to the crime scene, to that burial site.
You saw a body there, a burnt body.
I saw human remains rolled up in what appeared to be an air mattress. There was a hatchet in the burn pit with the remains. I saw a number of knives that looked like they came out of a butcher block.
Were those the ones that were also identified that we saw in the pictures inside her apartment that day when it was found out that she was missing?
Right, so those knives that were found with the body matched the style, make, and type that were missing from Holly's apartment.
Best way I could explain it to you is it was an oval-shaped 6-inch hole in the ground, long enough, to place her body.
So she was not buried, she was just laid there for the fire. And then how did they ignite it?
Gasoline.
Just poured it all around the area. Jesse James is at his son's house at Camp Lejeune when a detective from Fayetteville Police calls him with the news.
And of course I said, let's go. I'm going out there, to see the remains. And he said, I don't think you should do that. I don't think you should come out there with us. And I said, well, I don't care really what you think at this point. I'm going out where my child's remains were found. And he says, well, let me just try to make it a little clearer. There isn't much to see. He said the body had been burning for days.
I know that when it came to finding her, there was a lot of love poured into it, and that is something that I really appreciate, that people who didn't necessarily know her still felt the need to find her and loved her as deeply as they did.
An autopsy would confirm that the dismembered remains found in the pit were Holly's. The cause of death was a single gunshot wound to the head.
During the initial crime scene process, one of the things that kind of stood out to me was a small hole in the closet door of the master bedroom. I didn't know why, I couldn't explain it. Sure enough, as soon as we cut that door into, a piece of bullet fragment fell out. So my suspicions initially were correct, that it looks like she was laying down on the floor in the bedroom. The round was fired into her head, it exited her head, it hit the concrete floor, ricocheted up, and rested in the closet door.
One of the critical pieces that you need is the physical body of the person that was killed, and we had that now. And so the first thing we wanted to do is go talk to Kyle Alden again and ask him what really happened that day.
But would this tough Marine finally crack?
It's come to Jesus time, all right? But you can't get forgiveness unless you ask for forgiveness. You better get it out right now.
Investigators have finally discovered the remains of Holly Lynn James at a site deep in a pine forest. But Kyle Alden denies knowing anything about what became of her.
Have you guys found her body yet?
I'm gonna be honest with you. I mean, we will find her. All right. I promise you that.
As the questioning continues, Detective Locklear decides to see if some psychological persuasion can get Alden to open up.
And then I guess that's the whole crew.
Photos tend to help get people in their feelings, and that's the reason I introduced some photos in the interview.
So now you're showing him the pictures of these two adorable kids.
Mm-hmm. He tried to not look at the photos. Every time I would catch him kind of leading off, not looking at the photos, I said, no, look at her and her kids. And that pressure really worked with him.
Finally, Alden starts revealing details about the day of Holly's disappearance. He tells detectives that John Wymonk called to ask if he could borrow a truck.
I told him I can make a couple phone calls and see if I can get a truck. He's like, okay, I'll meet you in Clinton.
What is this?
Kyle Alden and John Wymonk stopped at a Shell gas station in Clinton, North Carolina, which is about halfway between here and Camp Lejeune.
And then we go into the gas station. He's like, you want something to drink? It's like, okay. And then we go back outside. We talk a little bit. He's like, what's the worst thing you've ever done? He said, the worst thing I've ever done is killed somebody.
What do you think he means by this?
I do not know. I did not want to know.
What else does he say?
He's like, you can't say anything about this, but I need your help doing something.
Okay, and did you ask him what he means?
No.
Are you worried at this point?
I'm kind of worried. I'm kind of hesitant. What could he have done? Why does he not want me to tell anybody?
The dam's beginning to break, right? The information's beginning to come forward.
Alden says they leave the Shell station, and about an hour later, the pair reaches their destination, Holly's apartment in Fayetteville. Here, Alden changes his story, now saying that the two did, in fact, go into the apartment.
You both get out of the truck.
And then we walk down the sidewalk, back over to his apartment. Then I come into the master bedroom, and the carpet's torn out.
I just don't think that he was prepared when he arrived at her apartment for what he saw.
So you guys carried that stuff out to the other truck?
Yes.
What did you do next?
We go back in for the blue bag thing, and then we just pick it up and carry it.
How much did the bag weigh?
Probably about 150 pounds.
What do you think was in the bag?
Thought crossed my mind. It's like, the worst thing he's ever done is killed somebody. We're in his house. There was a blood spot on his wall. There's a blood spot on the bed. There's a blood spot on the floor. What the hell happened? Am I carrying out a body?
He got really nervous talking about what he saw when he first arrived at the apartment. His carotid artery, you can watch that in a person, and when they really get nervous, it's almost like there's a little small green tree frog right in their throat. It's just throbbing.
We drive around for a little bit, and then he says, hey, we need to go to Walmart's.
Then a brazen act is caught on video.
When they got to Walmart and parked, they actually went to the bed of the truck, picked her body up, took it, put it in the cab of the truck, closed the door, locked it, went inside and shopped.
We grabbed 2 jugs of Shell oil.
They pay for the items at the register and head back to the truck.
They then came back out and removed her body from the interior of the truck and put it back in the bed. We retrieved that video. That was a really key piece of evidence for us that they had the callousness to do that.
Alden says the pair then head back towards Camp Lejeune, stopping along the way to pick up Wymonk's car. And then from there, they each drive to a secluded spot.
So what happens?
Then I continue to put the bags in the tote in the trunk, the big bag in the backseat of the car, and then I take off.
Alden says he then continues home, solo, and that was the end of his involvement.
Is there any details that we missed this time?
Not that I can think of right now.
But Detective Locklear has a hunch that Alden has more to tell. Could bringing him back for one more day of questioning finally break the case fully open?
The next day, when I walked back in that interview room, I had my chest poked out and my tail feathers were high because I was armed with information that I didn't have when I first went in there. And I let him know it.
Guess where I just come from? There's soot and dirt on my shoes. Why do you think there's soot and dirt on my shoes?
I have no idea.
I went where Holly's at. You have been lying to me since we met one another, right? But I don't understand why.
Sensing that Alden is still holding back, Detective Jeff Locklear, who happens to be a preacher's son, invokes a higher authority.
It's come to Jesus time, all right? But you can't get forgiveness unless you ask for forgiveness. You better get it out right now. Now you tell me the rest of it. Tell me the rest of it.
Will that appeal get Alden to see the light? Will he finally tell the truth about what really happened to Holly?
I tell him, this stuff is scaring me. I don't know what to do.
In the NCIS building at Camp Lejeune, it's been 3 long days of questioning for Marine Kyle Alden. And it's at this point he finally tells investigators what he claims to know about John Wymonk's involvement in the death of his wife, Holly.
He called me, it was around 6:30. He said that he'd been there all morning and all afternoon. He said, I killed her. I didn't ask him how he killed her. I just said, why?
You have to be careful in situations like this. He's telling me a story, and if I encourage him and it's not correct, he can go down the wrong road here.
Told me that she didn't die right away, so he had to hit her again. And I told him I don't want to hear that.
But he still kept telling you, didn't he?
Yes, sir.
What did he say?
He's like, the look in her eye, he'd never seen anything like it, the look in her eye.
Kyle Alden then says he and John Wymonk are not yet done at the apartment.
He told me he had to burn the apartment and he had to let it burn a really long time because he wanted to try to get rid of all the evidence.
They had devised a plan and made an agreement that they would drive her remains back to the area of Camp Lejeune and find somewhere at that point to bury the remains.
Investigators say they choose a place familiar to Alden.
Alden was living not far from here. How far away was he?
As the crow flies, about a half a mile. The reason they picked this area was he was familiar with it because he had been back here doing some target shooting. That's how he even knew that this place existed. I had enough probable cause at that time to charge him with the arson and the conspiracy to commit the arson. That allowed me to arrest him, Alden, and arrest Wymonk and get my hands on him and get him back to Fayetteville.
With both men in custody, the focus now switches back to John Wymonk and what possible motive could he have to kill his wife? Investigators believe the answer to that question lies in what they were told about John's alleged violent treatment of Holly.
The first time we really talked about it is when her and John Wymonk got in the fight, and she showed up at my house. Her hair was a mess. She had scratches and claw marks all over her back.
We came out a couple of weeks on vacation to visit Holly, a couple of weeks before she was murdered, and I met him again once there. I just really didn't have a sense that there was anything until she began talking about a divorce.
Authorities come to learn that Holly filed for a protective order against John Wymonk in May, less than 2 months before she was killed, in which she alleged a chilling encounter with her husband.
We discovered that there had been an incident in the prior months leading up to this where he had threatened suicide and also held a gun to her head.
To her head?
Correct.
Threatening to kill her?
Yes.
The night that Holly left John at the apartment, she was kind of telling me everything that happened, that John had threatened her. He carved her name into a bullet and told her, "This one's for you."
The fact that he was in the military and went as extreme as he did makes it so much worse, because his main priority should have been protecting her. That was his main job, was to protect a mother and a wife, and he couldn't, and he wouldn't do that.
After Holly did not show up for a court hearing on the protective order, the case was dismissed.
You need anything to drink? Glass of water, sir. You want some water? Fair enough.
Despite the growing amount of evidence against John Wymunk implicating him in Holly's murder, Wymunk still will not talk.
Armed with the information that Kyle had given investigators, they gave John Wymunk an opportunity to come clean and tell what happened. He said he wasn't going to talk with them without an attorney present.
Okay, stand up. Follow me out here.
He was then charged with first-degree murder, second-degree arson, as well as conspiracy to commit second-degree arson.
Corporal John Wymunk is accused of killing his wife, Second Lieutenant Holly Wymunk, a nurse stationed at Fort Bragg.
My client is presumed to be innocent. We don't want this case tried in the media. We want it to be tried in a court of law.
Taking a case to trial, there's always risk involved. In this case, we had very good information from Kyle, and the thought was that Kyle would testify at trial as to what happened, and then we would put all the circumstantial evidence together to point to the fact of what John Wymunk had done that night.
While John Wymunk pleads not guilty to all charges in connection with the arson and his wife's death, Kyle Alden is now cooperating with authorities. He agrees to take Detective Locklear through the night of Holly's murder at the scene of the crime.
It was very telling to bring him back to the spot. He had never been here before, right before that night. This is only the second time he had ever been here, and he could still remember where he parked.
I parked right there besides the Chrysler.
It was worth taking him back out there and having him tell it from his own, the viewpoint of the guy that was there the night this happened.
And from there, you guys went to...
we went back out towards Jacksonville Saints Ferry area.
Did he give an indication of why it is that he did what he did, what Alden did?
The only explanation that I'm aware of is that Wymunk, being another Marine, asked him for help, and he agreed.
You're a Marine, would you do that?
Absolutely not.
After he confessed, Kyle Alden was charged, and he ultimately pleaded guilty.
Kyle Alden was sentenced to approximately 5 years in prison.
And at a hearing for John Wymunk, Holly's brother Bo sees the man he once called a friend, now accused of killing his sister.
So we stood up when Wymunk came in, and he didn't even look. He didn't turn around.
Ultimately, in 2010, John Wymunk pled guilty to first-degree murder.
John Wymunk is sentenced to life in prison for arson, conspiracy to commit arson, and Holly's murder.
The district attorney called me and he said, I have Wymunk here. His parents have convinced him to take a plea of life without parole. I said, you just take the plea and send him to prison, you know, so that's what they did.
Did you hope there was a death penalty?
I personally wanted it, yeah. It's a different opinion than my dad's.
With John Wymunk now behind bars, Jesse James still has questions.
Did you expect he would write back to you?
Will this father finally get answers from his daughter's killer?
She was honored in many ways.
It was a lavish funeral, and I did it on purpose because Holly was a big personality. The police in the community from several communities came, and the Patriot Guard. It looked like a state funeral.
Dignitary.
Dignitary, yeah. And that's what I wanted for Holly.
What was it like then to be at a funeral like that?
It's heartbreaking. And I just uncontrollably cried. It was awful. It was just in so many ways.
You put them together. The man that you introduced to your sister ultimately killed her.
Right. It's part of what haunts me for a long part of my life, absolutely.
But that's looking back. Nobody can ever predict something that they already learned.
But once you go through something, it's really hard to take it away. Pretending it didn't happen is hard, but coming to terms with it is even harder.
Sometimes I think every time I take a step here, maybe I'm taking a step in a place she has stepped. And that gives me a sense of presence.
Here in the hallway of Womack Army Medical Center, where Holly once worked, her memory stands eternal, a silent testament to a life that will not be forgotten.
What does that say down there?
In memory of Second Lieutenant Holly James, for her joy, her service, and her support of mothers and babies.
Well, she was loved.
Yes, she was.
The pain of losing a daughter never fades, and neither do the unanswered questions.
So after all these years, you still want to know more?
Yeah, I'd like to know more.
Recently, Jesse made the difficult decision to reach out to John Wymunk, the man who murdered his daughter, through an online prisoner website.
John, both my son Jesse and I carry no anger toward you, but only grief for the loss of Holly. The level of grief we carry leaves no room for you. To my surprise, I did receive a response to my letter. The response goes like this: "Thank you for reaching out to me. You are entitled to answers to which I will give them to you as best I can. I hope this will provide some closure for all parties involved."
Did you expect he would write back to you?
I thought he would. It took a long time, and the return letter went into the things like, yeah, we need to talk.
But rather than taking responsibility, Wymunk outlines a process centered on his own terms and not on the needs of Jesse.
Even in that letter that he wrote, there's no apology. He does not care about what he did. He only cares about what's happening to him.
You are now communicating with the man who murdered your daughter. If you were to talk to him in person, would that be something that would be somewhat helpful to you?
I think being in the same room would have a negative impact on me. John, I can assure you that I have no interest in engaging in restorative justice or any sense of closure with you. How could you possibly restore 17 years of life without Holly? I fought to live a life of joy because I didn't want to be a victim of John Wymunk too.
So you've never been there?
Never been there.
Would you want to go there?
At this point, I think I would like to do that.
Years after his daughter was discovered here, Jesse James visits the sacred, hallowed ground for the first time, not just to face where Holly's body was abandoned, but to honor her memory.
Well, not only for myself, but I'd like to represent my family and her friends that did not get to see her again.
What do you think about now?
I think that I miss my protector. She was always the big sister.
Today, those who loved Holly keep her memory alive, remembering her as the devoted mother and dedicated soldier she always strived to be. What would you like the world to remember about Holly?
I think she should be remembered for trying to give so much. My sister loved protecting the people she cared about.
Got the same smile too, right there. I want people to remember her as a really good mother with the time she had.
I am very proud of who she was. A patriot is someone who goes above and beyond, and that's what she did. Like, no matter what.
Isn't she sweet?
She put everything above herself. And I don't think there's anything more patriotic than that.
The life of a true patriot cut short. In the years since his daughter's murder, Jesse James has become an advocate in the fight against domestic violence, hoping, David, to make a difference.
After completing his sentence, Kyle Alden was released from prison. Neither he nor John Wymunk are members of the Marine Corps any longer. That is our program for tonight. Thank you for watching. I'm David Muir.
And I'm Deborah Roberts. From all of us at 2020 and ABC News, good night.